Notice of this meeting was given to all board members and associates in a meeting notice dated May 15th, 2023. Furthermore, on that date, a copy of such notice was sent to the Times, the Trentonian, and the clerk of the Township of Hamilton. It was also posted on the bulletin board at the entrance to the boardroom in the Hamilton Square Administrative Building. Please rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yep.
God, I'm tired.
Ms. Harvey,
Yes, here.
Mr. Kanka,
Here.
Dr. McSheen,
He'll be
Here.
a little late. Oh, you're
Nope.
here. He's here. Okay. Dina just told me you're running a little late.
Ms.
Sorry about that.
Here.
Byrne,
Here.
Mr. Salantano,
Here.
Dr. Farrar. Here. Mr. Gonzalez. Ms. Lombardo.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Can I get a motion to enter into exec?
So moved.
Moved. Oh, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes.
Whereas NJSA 10:4-13 requires adoption of the board to go into executive session. Be it resolved that the board pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, New Jersey, Title 18A, and the Hamilton Township Board of Education bylaw number 0166, hereby enter executive session to discuss a matter involving student matters and matters falling under the attorney-client privilege. Be it further resolved that the minutes of this executive session shall be made public following formal action by the board and or at the conclusion of any investigation, due process proceeding, or litigation, so long as not prohibited by law and so long as the need for maintaining confidentiality no longer exists.
Everybody, if you look at your agenda tonight, the last 2 pages, can you bring them with you into exec? Oh, yes, go ahead.
Before we go into executive, just for those in the audience tonight, we recognize and thank our teachers of the year and our ESPs of the year from each of our schools. Thanks to the video magic of Mr. Mike D'Elia, who is out there, we have please a round of applause for Mike. We have a video representing all of our teachers and all of our ESPs this year. We want you to please enjoy this video while the Board of Education is in executive session. When the Board of Education returns, we will celebrate our teachers and ESPs of the year with certificates from the district and the county. Thank you.
Watching on demand.
Thing for tonight, we want to make sure our teachers get the recognition they deserve and our support staff. So we're going to start with Dr. Rocco and Dr. Altobello.
Yeah, in just about a minute, we're going to call up our teachers of the year and our ESPs of the year. First of all, I want to congratulate all of our teachers of the year and all of our ESPs of the year. If you are here tonight, and in a moment we're going to call you, but if you are here tonight and you're a teacher of the year or you're an ESP of the year, would you please stand and be recognized? On behalf of the Board of Education, we want to congratulate you. We want to thank you. We appreciate that the work that you do, and obviously your peers in your school and your students also appreciate what you do. Some of you were coming in while we were in executive session. There is a video that played for the last hour that recognizes and congratulates every teacher of the year and every ESP of the year. It is on YouTube. We will be tweeting it, posting it on Instagram and on our website for people to see. It's a celebration of all of you and the great things that you do. At this time, Dr. Altobello is going to call names, and we have certificates from the district and certificates from the county. Thank you.
Thank you. For all of the teachers of the year and the ESPs of the year, we'll also email you the link to the video directly so that you have it. And we will also share it out with all staff so that everybody in the staff in the district has an opportunity to see it. I'd like to thank obviously all of the staff members who made that video, and especially thank Mike D'Elia, our video guy, for putting that together. I know it took a lot of hours and a lot of time, and we appreciate it, Mike. So we'll start with Alexander. The teacher of the year is Mrs. Stephanie Siliento. And the ESP of the year is Mr. Robert Pauley, who I don't believe is with us. Greenwood, teacher of the year, Mr. Nicholas Notariello. ESP of the year, Miss Jill Hale. Start School Teacher of the Year, who's not with us, Mrs. Jennifer Donzuzo. And the ESP of the Year, who's not here, Miss Melissa Clark. Klockner, Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Alexandra Gonzalez. Not here. And ESP of the Year, Miss Yaneda Medina. Thank you. Mercer, Teacher of the Year, Miss Maribel Montero. And ESP of the Year, Miss Molly Figueroa. Layler, neither award winner could be here tonight, but the Teacher of the Year is Mrs. Kate McWilliam. And the ESP of the Year is Miss Juliana Shortino. Langtree, Teacher of the Year, Mr. Nicholas Fucello. Not here. And ESP of the Year, who's also not with us, Miss Dana Castro. McGalliard's Teacher of the Year and ESP of the Year could not be here, but Teacher of the Year is Mrs. Elizabeth Bobbing, and ESP of the Year is Mrs. Karen Martiello. Mercerville Teacher of the Year, Miss Marissa Dolan. And ESP of the Year, who's not here, Mrs. Rebecca Lang. Morgan Schools Award winners couldn't join us, but the Teacher of the Year is Mrs. Kristen Mazza, and the ESP of the Year is Mrs. Alyssa Abate. Robinson Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Deborah Gordon. Not here. And ESP of the Year, Miss Shanae Moore. Sayan, Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Terry Cantura. And ESP of the Year, Mrs. Carrie Willis. Sunnybray Teacher of the Year could not be here, Mrs. Katie Maruka. And the ESP of the Year, Mrs. Denise Azaro. University Heights Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Jennifer Chiarello. And the ESP of the year is Miss Ann Flynn. Wilson Teacher of the Year, Ms. Angelique Vigo. And the ESP of the year, Mrs. Beth Jaworski. Yardville, neither award winner could be here, but we would like to recognize Mrs. Megan Liberto as the Teacher of the Year and Mrs. Tara Church as the ESP of the year. Yardville Heights, Teacher of the Year, Miss Angela Welter. And ESP of the year, Mrs. Jennifer Malcolm. Crockett Middle School, Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Laura Robb. And ESP of the year, Mrs. Jennifer Hensler. Rice, Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Marissa Naro. And ESP of the year, Mr. Peter Valenzano. Reynolds, Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Audrey Barton. And ESP of the year, Mrs. Janelle Slaughter. Steiner, Teacher of the Year, who couldn't be here, Mrs. Jennifer Toman Smith. ESP of the Year, Mrs. Jerry Leone. Nottingham Teacher of the Year, who couldn't be here, Mrs. Jennifer Kleck. And ESP of the Year, who also couldn't be here, Mrs. Allison Setzer. Hamilton West Teacher of the Year, Mr. Mark Pensack. And ESP of the Year, Mrs. Amy Emmons. HEP Teacher of the Year, Ms. Brenda Livingston. And HEP ESP of the Year, Mrs. Linda Marasco. If we could just have, before the Teacher of the Year and ESP of the Year exit the building, we'd like to get one group shot out in the hallway before you go. But thank you for being here. Congratulations.
Some of them are right now.
I think I want to go on. It's not. Other presentations too before yours. Okay, next we're gonna have Patrick Carrick, our board attorney, do our two presentations for us. Is an hour long?
It's going to come down here.
Oh, you're kidding.
Skip.
One is gonna be on our school ethics. And the other one is gonna be on presentation on obscenity laws. Okay.
Sorry. You guys are going to learn.
You guys, the screen's gonna come in front of you.
As I'm graduating.
Go down there and watch.
This is on,
That's good.
Yeah, so should we go down there?
Let's sit over there.
What's for our benefit?
Right over here.
It's bathrooms. I've already seen these. Then I'll get you out of there. This is fun here. I like it here. Okay. I could just sit up here.
Oh, boy. Oh.
That's put the pressure on.
Yeah, let me just make sure. Did I turn it on? I did not, of course.
Helps with the blurry presentation there.
I mean, I could do my.
Should be good.
It's this button to the right, right? That's what I'm supposed to be pressing. All right, I'll just,
Tap along.
I'll tap along.
Oh, no, you're not tapping along.
So you know what? It must be in the wrong mode.
Oh, there you go. You're good. That's what we're trying to.
All right, great. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Coward. I'm the board attorney for the Hamilton Township Board of Education, as well as 10 other school districts throughout the state of New Jersey. Basically, what I do is sit quietly up there and hope no one pays attention to me. But I've been given this opportunity tonight to speak to all of you and to do the board presentation that I do annually at a number of boards of education on the School Ethics Act. And the School Ethics Act is basically the guidepost for board member conduct on school boards. It is often said that school board members are actually the most regulated, publicly elected officials that exist in any body anywhere that there is. And that's very true. There are just so many different types of prohibitions and limitations on what a board member can do and say. And this is just going to touch upon that very little. So basically, what is the School Ethics Act? It's a statute passed by the state legislature. It gets amended periodically. It has been amended by regulation as recently as last year, which kind of changed a few things for people that work in this arena. But primarily what the School Ethics Commission does is it issues advisory opinions. It adjudicates complaints. So when a school ethics complaint is filed against a board member, the School Ethics Commission becomes involved in determining whether a violation actually occurred. It oversees the filing of financial and relative disclosure forms. So every single year, board members have to submit and say where they earn money from, and they also have to submit who their relatives are. And the purpose for that is because they can't vote on things where they have a financial interest, whether that is a direct interest or an indirect interest, and they can't vote on things that involve their relatives, whether it's directly involving their relatives or indirectly involving their relatives. It also oversees board member training. Board members go through quite a number of trainings each year so that they can learn what they're supposed to do once they become board members. And even after they've been on the board for quite a while, just like many other professions, they have continuing education, and that can persist for many years. And there's different titles, which I'm not even entirely familiar with, but they go on to be master board member and things like that. The School Ethics Commission also issues sanctions to board members that have been found to violate the School Ethics Act. And these can range from a reprimand, a censure, suspension from the board, or removal, the death penalty. They also issue fines for frivolous complaints. So if a person files a complaint against a board member and it's determined to be frivolous, which usually means that it's in bad faith and has no chance of succeeding, the School Ethics Commission can actually fine that person up to $500 when they dismiss the complaint. So in addition to the act itself, and as you may be familiar with, the state has regulations that are passed by regulatory bodies, and they're basically rules that supplement an existing statute. And so what they did last year was they changed a few things. Less important is that they enhanced the penalty for failure to file disclosure statements or complete training in a timely manner. What they did basically is said, we need board members that are trained. And it used to be that a board member had 1 year to complete their training. And if you didn't get your training completed within a year, they sent you a stern letter that said, you really need to get your training completed. And if you ignored that stern letter, they would send you a second stern letter saying you really, really need to get your training completed. And now this board member has been serving for over a year, doing lots of votes, whatever else they've been doing. And then they would finally get to the point where they would file what's called an order to show cause, saying, all right, we've had enough. We want to now penalize this board member. So we're going to have them show cause as to why they haven't complied with their training obligation. And usually at that point, board members would say, oh, you know what, let me just go and do this now. And they would do it, and really nothing happened to them. And what has changed now, and these go along with the two changes, board members now have to complete this within 90 days. So basically they said giving them a year is too long because they're going to vote on a lot of things during that first year and take a lot of actions. And it would be good if they knew what they were doing before they started doing that. In addition to that, now, if you don't do it, they have enhanced penalties where you get in a lot more trouble for not completing it within a timely fashion. So in terms of compliance with the School Ethics Act, and I apologize because this has previously been given in a smaller room than this, board members are individually bound by and charged with understanding and complying with the ethical standards set forth in the Act. So what that means is it's self-policing. The board members know who their relatives are better than anybody else. They know where their financial conflicts are better than anybody else. And so they're the ones that are supposed to self-police and make sure that they are not voting on things, participating in things, or discussing things that they would have a conflict with. This means that they must monitor themselves and avoid unethical behavior. The last bullet point indicates the commission has never accepted the defense that incorrect advice or lack thereof would absolve a school official from complying with the School Ethics Act. So this happens in many, many cases, not this district though, because there's actually been very few, knock on wood. What can happen is a board member will get there and say, well, I listened to the board attorney. They told me I could do this or do that. And what happens in those circumstances is the Ethics Commission says, excuse me, ma'am. All right, can I keep going? Okay. Okay. So what happens is that what happens is they go and say, I relied on the board attorney. If they do that, the School Ethics Commission has consistently said, all right, well, that's not going to depend on whether or not you violated it. It's going to go towards whether there should be a significant penalty or not. So the big three when it comes to the School Ethics Act are collective negotiations, personnel, including the superintendent, and the role of board members. Collective negotiations being a major role that a board member has. Board members participate in collective bargaining. They negotiate terms with the unions to figure out, what are appropriate and reasonable terms for employment conditions. It's a very significant thing that board members do. So that is something where there's a lot of law as to whether board members can participate in that. Same thing with personnel. Every month, you'll see hiring decisions that are going on here. Board members have to abstain or recuse themselves from those decisions based upon those conflicts. And then the third thing is, what is the role of the board member? Board members are supposed to be involved with certain things, particularly policy, setting policy for the district, but not supposed to be involved with certain other things, which are administrative roles. And so this will get into that. So just briefly, collective negotiations, who cannot participate? If you have a relative or other who is an employee in the district, in the bargaining unit, you're going to be excluded from negotiations. And so that's why there are people, especially in boards of education, which are always comprised of people that live in the community, have often lived in the community for a very long time, and often have family members or relatives living in the community and working in the school district. They're in a position where they're not going to be able to participate in the CBA. If their spouse or relative is supervised by employees in the unit, they cannot participate in that unit's negotiations. If they're not in the unit, but the terms of employment are linked, and that sometimes happens where you have a contract that says, okay, the administrators get the same health insurance as the teachers. In those situations, those contracts would be linked, and so if you were conflicted in one, you'd then be conflicted in both. And a board member's endorsement by the union. So there are times when a union will come out and say, we support and want you to vote for a certain board member. And a board member might say, I accept proudly the endorsement of this union. In those circumstances, the board member is going to be conflicted from serving in negotiations or labor matters for 1 year after they've accepted that endorsement. And so basically, they can't serve on the negotiations team, participate in the planning of negotiations, or discuss negotiations at all in those circumstances. And they cannot vote in the contract. It's a little chart that was established by the School Ethics Commission because it got so confusing as to when you could participate or not participate. So they came out with this to help to assist people. And as you can see, there's probably a half dozen asterisks on there, which keeps lawyers employed. Basically, there's always a nuance or exception or additional fact that we have to go and assess to see whether or not a person is going to be conflicted, even with this chart helping us out. So I'm going to touch upon some recent decisions, recent being in the last 5 years. I apologize. So whether a board member is a student in the district came up because you had a situation where a board member was elected while they were still a senior student. In that situation, the question arose as to whether they had a conflict, particularly with hiring decisions, personnel decisions related to their own teachers. And in that situation, the board member does not have a conflict simply because he or she is a student in the district. This other question here in A0718, these are all listed in the order they come in. The second number is the year that they're filed. Whether a board member has a conflict and whether they may continue to serve on the finance committee due to the wife's cousin being employed within the district. So cousins are this unique area in the law because based on the definition of relative under the School Ethics Act, a cousin is not a relative. A cousin is what is considered an other. And so you have to then do this secondary analysis to see whether or not there's a reason that they're giving the cousin unwarranted privileges. And so for the most part, cousins are often not a basis for a conflict, but they can be. In this particular situation, they said the board member may engage in the activities relating to negotiations with the union, including development of the salary guide, so long as you do not extend an unwarranted privilege. Some other more recent decisions. So the board member that considered accepting a local job that had a role in forging relationships with the school board was able to take the job, but just could not then participate in forging those relationships with the school board or voting on issues related to that company that they were now working for. They had a situation where a board member's ex-spouse was a member of the local union and they shared custody. So while many things will not survive a divorce, your conflict will. The commission found that the ex-spouse was considered an other, and the board member was advised not to participate in negotiations or be involved in matters involving the superintendent in that district. A board member conflict arose from a spouse in the district, continued as long as they were employed in the district, and even after the superintendent resigned. So in that situation, the superintendent was gone at that point. They no longer had a conflict with them, but since they had matters still tending to the superintendent's contract afterwards, the conflict persisted. This was another one where they looked at an aunt-in-law and a distant cousin in the union. Those would be considered others, and they said that those did not prevent the board member from participating in negotiations. And then the last one, same statewide union bar remains in effect, even for employees that have intentionally withdrawn from the union. So some people now are initially in the union, and then they will say, well, I don't want to be part of the union anymore, so they rescind their membership. They still create a conflict because their terms and conditions of employment are still governed by the contract, even if they're not active members of the union. Board members' involvement in personnel, and I'm going to go quickly because we've got a lot tonight. Personnel conflicted board members may not be involved in any discussion pre or post hire, may not be part of any aspect of the vetting process or any evaluation and contract discussion post hire. And this applies to the entire line of authority. So if your spouse or daughter is a teacher in the district, everyone in the line of authority all the way up through the superintendent, you have a conflict with them because in theory, they supervise the spouse or daughter. And so for that reason, the School Ethics Commission has said, you're conflicted with everybody, don't get involved with their personnel decisions. These cases are just memorializing that and are examples of situations where that's occurred in the past. In terms of the board member's role, so a lot of people think, well, I know a board member, I'll just call them, they'll take care of it, whatever it may be involved in schools. And the reality is board members really don't have that ability. Number one, they're only one of 9, and so usually it takes a board majority to affect anything, but then they only work on certain things. And so generally speaking, a board member carries out their responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they're well run. And that's really from a policy setting standpoint, from approving items on the agenda. They do not become involved in activities or functions that are responsibility of school personnel or the day-to-day administration of the school district. Basically, they're there to set the policy and also to make sure that the superintendent is making good recommendations for the running of the school district. So some, again, more recent advisory opinions that came out, and advisories, the way you get these is before a board member takes the action. And that's very critical, because you try to get an advisory after the board member has done something, the SEC will say, it's too late, we don't do that. This is only before something happens. So can a board member post information related to the board on social media? Half the ethics advisories that come out now are about social media. It is a constant issue with regard to what board members can or cannot do on social media. It is so much so that board attorneys in my position are often like, why don't you just not go on social media altogether? Because that would avoid any conflicts or any possible violations. That's not a reality in this day and age though, right? So this is a case arose because a board member was posting factual information, non-confidential information, in response to questions from the community about school district issues. They used a disclaimer to say they were only speaking for themselves and not the board. The Ethics Commission actually said, we don't advise that you do that. That may be a violation because even though you're putting up the disclaimer, this was on a school district page, and it was called whatever school district it was, Q&A between parents and the board, and the responses being given made it seem like they were coming from the board member. So even with the disclaimer, they said that's not adequate, you should avoid doing that. In this situation, the board member received messages and emails through the Facebook group, as well as a number of questions from the public. Anything that dealt directly with decision-making in the school district were referred to the administration. Questions regarding confidential information were not answered, but operational questions were answered. Often a basic misunderstanding of how schools operate, and so the board member was working to clarify that. They felt that was administrative in nature, and the board member should not be doing that. So one of the things that often comes up in these cases is, well, once you become a board member, do you lose your First Amendment right to free speech? And the SEC walks a very fine line on this and tries to say, you don't lose your First Amendment right, but in a lot of cases, you're going to violate the School Ethics Act. And it's become a very big problem because it's very difficult to guide board members with that ever-changing landscape about what they can or cannot comment on. In this particular case, when making comments or statements at a time or place other than at a public board meeting, they had indicated you must ensure that views expressed or information shared do not appear to be written on behalf of or with authorization of the board. This is why board members use the disclaimer all of the time. Can a board member vote to refuse to implement the New Jersey State Learning Standards for comprehensive health and physical education? So this decision came out in late November of last year. Just to get into where it arose from, the question arose in the context of what if a board adopted an opt-in procedure versus an opt-out procedure? The SEC said the boards must ensure that the curriculum and instruction are designed and delivered in a way that all students can demonstrate the knowledge and skills specified by the NJSLS, non-waivable consequences for noncompliance, including CUSAC. And so what they said was, if a final decision from any court or law or administrative agency of the state were issued, and it showed that an individual school official had acted contrary to the laws, rules, and regulations promulgated by the State Board of Ed, they then could be found in violation of the Ethics Act. So this is a guidepost because, as you recall, there were some boards that had been adopting nuances to the NJSLS standards, and there was a question as to whether that would be an ethical violation. Again, this isn't ultra specific in terms of when it is or isn't, but it basically highlights that there's a two-step process. If it's found that the adoption was itself in violation of the law through a court or administrative agency like the Office of Administrative Law, then secondary after that, the board member could be held to have violated the School Ethics Act. So basically, just the board member's role is to see that the schools are well run, but to not run the schools. Oversight is accomplished by policy, setting goals, evaluating the chief school administrator, and developing a two-way communication with the stakeholders in the community. Board members set board policy. This is probably their chief function because it sets the direction of the school district. Board members have a role in obtaining information because obviously, as you see, they vote on recommendations to the superintendent every month. They don't vote on those recommendations just walking in here and reading them for the first time. There's actually a tremendous vetting process and information gathering process that's a two-way street between them and the superintendent so that they can rest assured that what they're voting on and approving is in the best interest of the school district. Board members have a role in sharing information. They can share accurate, non-confidential information with the public. They must avoid sharing false or misleading information, must avoid disclosing confidential information, even to their spouse. There's actually a case where that happened. And board members should exercise discretion when discussing matters discussed in committee or initiatives that the board has not yet committed to by way of a public vote. I'm just going to go a little bit further. Because we have another presentation. Yeah. All right. There was a recent decision on a board member's social media comments where he had made comments about a group's faith and culture. The SEC did find that this was a violation of the School Ethics Act because it was private action that could compromise the board. Responding to a parent's email at a time when the subject of a parent's complaint was actively pending with the administration and a final determination had not yet been rendered, a board member acted on the complaint at a time or place other than a public board meeting and prior to the failure of an administrative solution in violation of the statute. That was a situation where a board member had inquired and investigated before administration had an opportunity to do so, and that resulted in the ethics violation because board members do not themselves investigate incidents. That's administrative. And we're not going to do questions because we have the second policy. All right, so I've been asked to do a presentation on the First Amendment's obscenity laws. There has been some interest in this lately. Hold on a second. These are not correlating. Yeah, but this is that's not the same as this, so I can't see them both at once.
This is the last one.
Yeah, I just closed it out. Yeah. All right. Yes. All right. Thank you for bearing with me. So there's been interest statewide and nationally regarding First Amendment and obscenity laws as they relate to public schools. So I've been asked to do this presentation. This is now the second time. So who can raise a First Amendment challenge? The district has a policy that addresses this. It's 9130. Any person or group having legitimate interest in the schools of this district may present a request, suggestion, or complaint concerning district personnel, the educational program, instructional or resource materials, or the operations of the school district. So from the School Ethics Act presentation, you know that the boards adopt these policies. This is one of those policies that they have adopted. Every school district in New Jersey has a similar policy like this with various small differences. To raise a concern or complaint, the party must have a legitimate interest in the schools of the district. This has generally been interpreted to mean with actual ties to the school. Generally, status as a township taxpayer is not enough to establish standing. There must be some more significant basis to establish legal standing. Requirements for standing usually include that the plaintiff suffered an injury in fact, so that the person that's claiming or making the complaint has suffered an injury that is fairly traceable to the challenged action of the defendant, and that will likely be redressed by a favorable decision. And again, those are court standing. It's not the same as what would be the standing for 9130. For example, a future plan to someday check out and read a book in question is generally not enough. There would have to be more of a direct connection than that. Individuals with the actual ability to check out the book who have attempted have standing to raise such complaints. This was decided in the case very recently, Little versus Llano County out of Texas. Students and parents of the district are examples of individuals who can utilize District Policy 9130. That is not the sole or that's not the exclusive list of individuals that could use it. So standing in New Jersey, the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education implemented a policy on how books are selected and how the public can challenge books that appear on library shelves. That policy states only a student or parent guardian of a student in the district can make a challenge. So there are differences from one school district to the next. That was one of the differences. The goal of the policy was to have complaints brought by a stakeholder. Does the First Amendment permit schools to censor library books? This is a question that has been asked recently. The answer is yes, it does. Pursuant to the United States Supreme Court Board of Education versus PICO, schools are permitted to censor library book. Local boards have substantial legitimate role to play in the determination of school library content. PICO is an interesting case. So just briefly, when you think about courts, and everyone has heard of the United States Supreme Court, that is the highest ultimate authority in the land when it comes to the interpretation of laws. Before the United States Supreme Court, in the federal jurisdiction, there are what are called circuit courts. And so New Jersey is part of the Third Circuit, which governs a handful of states in the area. New York's in the Second Circuit. Pennsylvania is also in the Third Circuit. And then below the circuit courts is the federal district court. That's the first layer in the federal system. And many cases involving interpretation of the United States Constitution and the First Amendment, which is part of the Constitution, go through the federal system because the Constitution is federal. In New Jersey, we have a similar three-level court system, the first court being the Superior Court, the second court being the Appellate Court, and then the final being the New Jersey Supreme Court. We will also, in New Jersey, touch upon issues that get into the First Amendment. It kind of depends on how the person initiated the case and whether anybody took action during the course of the case to remove it to federal court or not. So you'll have cases from time to time that are specific to New Jersey. Many cases, though, involving the First Amendment come from federal jurisprudence because federal supersedes state in most areas. So what rights do students have? Students must always remain free to inquire, to study, and to evaluate, to gain new maturity and understanding. The school library is the principal locus of such freedom. So this case, PICO, was a U.S. Supreme Court case, but it didn't have a majority. It's the case that everyone goes back to and cites when they start talking about First Amendment when it comes to censorship and books and other media and art materials when they're in the public area. At the same time, though, because it didn't have a majority, it doesn't provide clear controlling guidance for anyone else, meaning lots of other courts have expressed that they can deviate from it, and they have deviated from it at times. School districts do not have absolute discretion to remove library books. That has been held pretty consistently throughout the appellate courts. So when does district discretion apply? Our Constitution does not permit the official suppression of ideas. That's at the fundamental core of the First Amendment. Essentially, the idea is that let's let people speak, and then the marketplace of ideas will figure out which one the best is, and we'll go from there. And so for the most part, that's why in the United States, particularly as compared to many other countries, the freedom of speech is sacred. We asked anybody in here, including myself, what amendment comes to mind when you think of the amendments? Freedom of speech is probably the first one off your tongue. Courts will look to the motivation behind the book suppression. So if there is a decision to remove a book from a school library, they're going to say, well, why did you do it? What's your reasoning? What's your rationale? You have to have rationale for it. Denying books because they contain ideas that a district does not agree with constitute a violation of the First Amendment. That has been consistently held throughout the country. So when does district discretion apply? If books were removed based on educational suitability, then removal is perfectly acceptable. Educational suitability could be age appropriateness. It could be whether or not it is consistent with the curriculum. Those are reasons that something may or may not come and be excluded from a library. Courts have found vulgarity and obscenity to be a valid basis for removing books as well, although we'll get into the definitions of what exactly that means. Ultimately, school boards may not remove books from school library shelves simply because they dislike the ideas contained in those books. And that, again, is at the core and fundamental to the First Amendment. So what is obscene speech? Obscene speech is sexually explicit material that violates fundamental notions of decency, which are great words from a U.S. Supreme Court that everyone then has to interpret and figure out what it means. Courts look at the effect of the book as a whole. In their entire context, not as detached or separate portions. And so selecting portions of a work, a material, will not allow you to say, well, just because of this portion, it must be obscene. You have to look at the work as a whole. When viewed as a whole, does it offend the common conscience of the community by present day standards? Miller versus California is the case that set that three-part test. The court has held that a standard to determine whether a material was obscene was whether the average person applying contemporary community standards, and contemporary community standards is a local assessment, not national standards, would find that the work appeared to the prurient interest, whether the work depicted sexual conduct defined by state law, and whether the work lacks serious literary, artistic, or scientific value. The court vacated and remanded the state court's decision in that case. To date, no Supreme Court decision has overruled the Miller test. So New Jersey has a case, State versus DeSantis. The New Jersey Supreme Court's definition provides a defendant could be convicted if the trier of fact found, this is convicted of an obscenity criminal statute, the material depicted or described in a patently offensive way, sexual conduct described above, to the average person applying contemporary community standards, the dominant theme of the material taken as a whole appeal to the prurient interest in such matters, and the material taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. It sounds just like the Miller test because it has to sound just like the Miller test because Miller is the supreme law of the land. What's a community? The community standard is not a national standard, but rather a local one. In Wine versus Township of Irvington, the court discussed the state's involvement in the field of obscenity. State is our view that statutes on obscenity enacted by the legislature since 1957, and particularly in 1971, evidence a clear design for uniform statewide treatment of the subject. This was then invalidated. The court invalidated a Paramus Borough ordinance because the regulation of the matter of sale of obscene material was preempted by the state. The local standard that is to be applied, if codified, must be consistent with Miller. Again, they were saying it's got to be just like Miller. So what are examples of material? Patently offensive representations or descriptions of ultimate sexual acts, normal or perverted, actual or simulated, and patently offensive representations or descriptions of masturbation, excretory functions, and lewd exhibition of the genitals. Material that has serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value will remain protected by the First Amendment, regardless of whether the government or majority of the people approve of the ideas these works represent. So in many ways, just like the Bill of Rights existed to protect the minority, the First Amendment continues to protect the minority, even where a majority of people may think that something is obscene. If it's not obscene per the Miller test, then it has to remain on there, even if a majority of people want to remove it. Sex versus obscenity. For legal purposes, sex and obscenity are not synonymous. They're not the same thing. Obscene material is material which deals with sex in a manner appealing to the prurient interest. The portrayal of sex, for example, in art, literature, and scientific works, is not itself a sufficient reason to deny material the constitutional protection of freedom of speech and press. Does the First Amendment protect obscene or lewd speech? The United States Supreme Court has found that obscene and lewd speech generally are of such slight social value that only a minor benefit is derived from such conduct, justifying the suppression in certain forums. Obscenity is not within the area of constitutionally protected speech because, again, it doesn't meet the Miller test by definition. So we've had a lot of recent cases that this has come up nationally. And again, we look nationally when there's a limited number of available cases in the state to give guidance, then we go and expand it to look nationally. These cases aren't precedential, meaning we don't necessarily have to follow them, but why we look to them is because just like there are smart people in New Jersey, there are also smart people in other states that have good arguments and reasons why they're making decisions. So we look to them to see maybe we'll agree with their rationales. So this case, Little versus Llano County, I think I'm saying it wrong, maybe Llano County, is a Texas Western District Court case. The public county library sought to remove children's books with messages not agree with, one of which was genderqueer. Books containing sexual activity or questionable nudity were removed. Specifically, one of the complaints was the depiction of the cartoon nudity. The court preliminarily determined the library's substantial motivation in removing the books appeared to be a desire to prevent access to particular views. So in that situation, they said the analysis was subject to strict scrutiny, which is the highest standard when the government takes action, and the defendant had to prove that the removals are narrowly tailored to serve a compelling interest. That's a high standard, high burden to establish. In this case, the conclusion was that the removed books were required to be returned to the library. Now, that's the lowest level court in that state, so it may go up through the appeals. Two other cases in Ray, A Court of Mist and Fury, and in Ray Genderqueer, a memoir. These are two cases out of the Virginia Beach Circuit Court. A local resident sought to have the books banned from a public school district and the Barnes & Noble as being obscene for unrestricted viewing by minors. The court denied the motion to declare the books obscene and held that the plaintiff did not allege sufficient facts to support a finding that the books are obscene. Again, this goes to the standing issue with limiting access to books. There was a case out of Counts versus Cedarville School District. In this case, the local school district imposed a parental permission for accessing certain books. And the district court said that there was standing in this case. Ultimately, what they found in terms of their substantive holding was that the school board members who voted to restrict access to the books, in this case, the books were Harry Potter, did so because they're concerned that the books might promote disobedience and disrespect for authority, and the fact that the books dealt with witchcraft and the occult. The court held that concerns over disobedience and disrespect were too speculative to justify the restriction of U.S. Constitutional Amendment 1. Regardless of the personal distaste with which the individual board members regarded witchcraft, it was not properly within their power and authority to prevent the students from reading it. The court therefore found that the students' First Amendment rights were violated, and the restriction based on the parent permission slip was invalidated. Again, State versus DeSantis, I mentioned that earlier. I'm going to jump past it. In New Jersey, we had a very recent case just out of March of 2023 in State versus Higginbotham. This case, the New Jersey's child erotica amendment to the endangerment statute was found to be overbroad because it unconstitutionally expanded the definition of child pornography to include images of children who were not engaged in sex acts, whereas the genitals were not displayed and regulated the private possession of child erotica. This case kind of tells you how far they go to protect the First Amendment, because normally you'd say, wait, the legislature passed an amendment to the child endangerment statute to basically outlaw certain child erotica, and the court invalidated it. And they invalidated it because it wasn't well defined enough. It was too vague, is essentially what they were saying. And so, again, it tells you how protective courts will be of the First Amendment. There have been some publications or published incidents of book removals in New Jersey recently. 3 schools had removed or limited books per September 2022 article out of Westfield, New Jersey. South Hunterdon School District voted against removing school books. Washington Township School District removed Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye from its curriculum. It didn't remove it from its library. Glen Ridge Library decided against banning certain LGBT theme books that also made the paper recently. And so that is in general the presentation. We could go into a lot more, but I don't want to bore everybody. So you're gonna substitute the hand carry agreement
Okay,
for 14-2.
okay, okay.
We had those chairs that we had the other. People too.
No. It's the wrong height for it is.
Sorry.
You're gonna do that?
I'm gonna go get it now.
Yeah, I got her. I'm sorry. You're up, sister.
She's got the others.
You got them all?
Yeah,
Okay.
she's a trooper.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. Okay, next we're gonna go with our student rep from Steiner. Erin, and she's also going to read for the other two students that had to leave before we were done the presentation. So you can just announce the school and read them. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out.
Of course. Hello, so I'm going to be speaking for Nottingham first. The Nottingham rep had her paper written out, so I'm just going to read off the paper. I was not able to attend last month's meeting due to a lacrosse game, so here's everything since our last meeting. The senior prom was held on April 28th at the Marriott. It was a great event for the seniors. There was also the after prom at Funplex that was very fun, and the hypnotism event at 4 a.m. was fun to watch and participate in. It was all around a great night. Dr. P received her doctorate from Rider University. Congrats to her. Sorry, I don't know how to say the last name, so Dr. P. On April 22nd, our STEP team was voted a winner of the NHSPA bracket and went to the Apollo Theater as a semifinalist to battle it out. On May 3rd, our spring instrumental concert took place. Everything was great and sounded amazing. Junior golfer Jack Burke played in the New Jersey State Tournament. Burke finished second at the Central/South Group second sectional tournament with a score of 75. He will then play in the New Jersey Tournament of Champions. Jack is the first TOC qualifier from Nottingham since the 1990s. Congratulations and good luck. Our girls lacrosse team won on their senior day against Ewing on May 10th, 10-7. Congrats to them. Our boys baseball team also won on their senior day against Princeton Day School 15-5 on May 15th. Congratulations. On May 11th, 3 of our staff members were recognized by the HTEA. Allison Seltzer was awarded New Jersey Government Service Professional of the Year. Claire David Edgehill was awarded Support Professional of the Year. Jennifer Kleck was awarded New Jersey Government Teacher of the Year. Congrats to our staff. On May 12th, our indoor percussion unit performed at the Mercer County Community College's Teen Arts Festival. Save the dates, class of 2024 for senior portraits, July 31st to August 3rd. Make sure that there is an up-to-date parent/guardian email address on file in Power School. Our Key Club members participated in field days at the University Heights and Klockner over the past week. Our senior awards will be held on June 7th at Rider University at 7 p.m. Seniors, make sure to fill out the Google form that has been posted in the classroom to attend our senior dinner on June 13th. Our junior and senior class of student government officials for the 2024 school year were announced this Monday. Congrats to them. Fall cheer tryouts are being held this week from 5 to 7. Come out if you're interested in being a North Star cheerleader. On June 2nd, seniors wear your college you are committed to for a group picture. That's Nottingham's report.
Thank you.
Do you want to do West or?
You're doing that.
I was gonna do West.
Okay, good.
Okay, so this is West reports. Hello, everyone. We had our senior prom on May 5th at Forest Gate Country Club. Our winners for prom king and queen were Zaire Evans and Angelina Reyes. We had our Mr. HHW show after a long hiatus on the 18th of May. The winner was Leaf Simonelli, Simonelli, thank you. Our marching band was on their trip to Disney where they performed and are on their way back as we speak. Speaking of band, the spring instrumental concert is scheduled for today at 7. Powder Puff practices started yesterday and is scheduled to take place on our new turf on June 9th at 6 p.m. Our spring vocal concert is scheduled for the 31st of May. Also on the 31st, seniors will have Decisions and Donuts, where they will be given breakfast in the school's cafeteria and dressed in their career, college, or U.S. Armed Forces apparel. A group picture will also be taken on the football field for the yearbook. Seniors will have their awards ceremony at Rider University on the 6th of June, their senior trip at Dorney Park on the 8th, and their senior picnic at the Liberty Lake Day Camp on the 19th. That was West Report. And now for my report. We are now doing the celebration of art. So if you want to walk around Steiner, you see a lot of amazing pieces that people have done. We have the Teen Art Show that was at Mercer County Community College, also a very, very talented event. I had the privilege of going and I was really amazed by what I saw. Senior prom was a very great turnout. I went myself, and one thing I did learn was that teachers and students know how to do a really good Cupid shuffle. After prom, I heard was a great turnout, but by the end of prom, my feet were on fire, so I did go home. The brand trip is on their Disney trip, but I heard they're on their way back right now. I'm very jealous, but I'm happy for them, I guess. For the Teens on Fire, they had their field day at an elementary school. We had Mr. SHS. It was a very, very intense event, but Greg Kanopka, Ryan James, and Patrick Vacatoro did take the crown for the end of the night. Very competitive. Baseball and softball won opening round of the state tournament, so congratulations to them. We had the senior breakfast recently. There was a lot of laughter and a lot of donuts. I had way too many to count, but it was great. We had the FBLA job fair. There is a vocal concert coming up. And to end it off, Sierra O'Neill had her 100th hit for softball. So congratulations to her. It's always a great thing to do. And yeah, that's the end of Steiner.
Thank you very much. Thank you for staying also.
Of course.
Have a good long weekend.
You too. Did you get to go?
Erin, thank you very much, and thank you for reporting all 3 schools. We appreciate it. Today marks 1 year since the Uvalde school shooting. June 2nd will be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. We support the efforts of those who work to make our schools and communities safe, and we support this day. Symbolically, those organizing the day ask individuals to wear orange to support the awareness of gun violence and honor those who are victims and survivors of it. Just a reminder to everybody that all schools in the district will be closed on May 25th, except for Wilson, and all schools will be closed May 26th and May 30th. That is on the calendar. It's been announced here. It's been put on social media, and you can see the revised calendar on our district website. I'm going to hold the turf field updates for Mr. Kanka. He asked me to do that, so I'm going to allow that to be in his report. As mentioned by Erin, congratulations to our 3 high school marching bands for performing in Disney World this week. The bands had a very successful competition season and have been in a number of our local parades. Yesterday, they showcased their talents on Main Street in Disney, and we're all proud of them. There's actually a really nice video out there on social media. So if you go on to any one of our district social media feeds, you are going to see them marching down Main Street. Last week, we held our annual Tech Night. It was an overwhelming success. Thank you to our technology department, our faculty, our staff, administration, and students who demonstrated technology that we use in our district and attended the event. Each year, it gets bigger and better. And I believe, if I'm correct, take my glasses off for this to see back there, we had around 500 people, Mr. O'Boyle? Up above that. He's telling me way over 500. So a great event. We do it each year. Please come out. It's a great way to see the technology we're using in the district. It's a great way to see our staff and our students demonstrating that. And we have a lot of vendors there also. June 2nd will be our annual Aware Because We Care Day to recognize the talents and abilities of all of our students. The theme for this year is We Are All Wonderfully Made. There will be events and activities throughout the district, and I know my leadership team will be participating in those events across the district in every one of our buildings. Yesterday, we released on social media and on our websites the colleges, careers, trades, and military choices of our seniors. With this information, we also released the majors, fields, and programs they will be going into. Check out the list. I'm telling you, it is impressive. I'd like to congratulate our entire class of 2023 on making those post-graduation decisions. And specifically, I want to thank our seniors who will enter the armed forces. We have students going into each branch of the military. Congratulations to the Layler Elementary School on receiving the New Jersey State School of Character Ed Award. We have a number of schools in our district that are state schools of character, and Layler is one of them now. On Monday night, the Office of Curriculum and Instruction, along with William Patterson University, hosted an information session regarding our dual enrollment program for Spanish 3, 4, and AP Spanish. We are starting our third year of this partnership, and we're excited to offer our students college opportunities prior to graduating from high school. This is just one example of several dual enrollment or collaboratives we have with colleges at this point, and we are currently in discussions with 2 more. The Office of Curriculum and Instruction, along with Building Administration, are beginning to plan for our annual summer learning. Once again, the district will use our ESSER funds to provide students in kindergarten through 12th grade with learning acceleration opportunities. Stay tuned for more information, and that will be posted through our schools and on our district website and through social media. Finally, tonight, just like the last year or so, there will be discussions and debate on a variety of topics such as policy and books. I want to be clear, as I hope I have been over the last year, that we have almost 1,200 students and almost 1,800 employees. Each of them are individuals and are unique. There is no cookie cutter standard of person in our district. We all come from a diverse culture, backgrounds, religions, orientations, and needs. Those differences should bring us together and bond us, not divide us. Those differences need to be supported, not minimized. Our differences need to be accepted. Our students are watching and listening. How we as adults conduct ourselves in our business is important. No student should hear that they are being marginalized. No student should feel as if they are not supported. I support all of our students in this district, and specifically our LGBTQ students who have come to these meetings asking for support and acceptance. You are supported and you are accepted. In addition, there will be further discussion on challenged books, book banning, and what is and is not appropriate. First, I do not believe in book banning. The history of that concept is long and dark. Second, I support the policy and process to address challenges, and I support the recommendation from the committee. Students, and specifically, we're talking about high school students, have books of many different topics and genres to choose from. Books are written to inform, explain, teach, and hopefully bring understanding of a topic. If all students are accepted in our district, then books that represent all students need to be available to our students. Thank you.
Okay, any members of the Board of Education have anything they want to report on? Ms. Thornton?
Yes, I just wanted to comment that in the beginning of May, the CPAG organization held their first whole child fair, which was a wonderful success. And I wanted to thank the the committee, the parents, the community, the vendors, the organizations that came out to make it such a wonderful event. And I want to thank Ms. Audino and her staff for making it so wonderful. And I just look to next year to see it grow even larger.
I agree. It was a great event. Great turnout, good crowd. And I got my little stuffed Angelo honor-free toy that I have in my car. I asked them to autograph it. Maybe it'll get me out of a ticket or two. And Ms. Burns, did you have something to add to that?
Yes, I too attended the whole child fair at West, and it was a great turnout. There were lots of participants. There was everything from cupcakes to crafts. Attending was Adorn Beauty Center and Spa located in nearby Bordentown. They cater to special needs children for haircuts. They are the first and only salon in the country to have a U.S. trademark on using service dogs for special needs children. Also present was a table managed by the Progressive Center for Independent Living. They wanted the participants to know about a grant with funds available for youths with disabilities. The prerequisite is that you live in Mercer County and you have an IEP. Funds are available based on income, and the money can be used for summer activities like camp or SAT prep. Please contact Renee or Marie at the Progressive Center for Independent Living to find out more.
Ms. Burns, can you give that information to Dr. Octobello and Marta? You have it? So anybody that wants that information, they can contact Dr. Octobello or Marta Audino, and they'll get that information for you. A good program for the kids and free money for them to go. Ms. Harvey?
I just had a quick update as well.
Sure.
I recently attended the Mercer County School Board's meeting. Dr. Farrar was actually also in attendance with me. I'm our rep to that committee, and we had a special presentation by the Mercer County clerk who had discussed a little bit about the ballot for school board candidates, and it was an educational experience because the school board is a nonpartisan group. We're actually either on the back or on the bottom of the ballot, and the clerk explained the theory behind it. She also explained whether the ballot would run horizontal or vertical is a decision that she can only make after she gets all the information from candidates. She also wanted it stressed that the petition for those interested in running for school board is available from her office. You can actually go online and get the petition. It has to be signed by, I believe, 12 voters registered in the town, and then you hand it back in to the clerk's office in Trenton. Those are due by July 31st, and then the following week, they do a drawing for the persons on the ballot for their placement. Then I also, there was discussion of pending legislation, and just so everybody's aware, as a hot topic that's been in our district, there is a bill that was proposed in both the state Senate and the House Assembly to ban school boards from banning books. So the law would prohibit a school board from banning any book. That is just pending. It was introduced recently. Then the final update is I just wanted to say to everybody who participated in putting on the tech night, it was a great experience. I know I brought my children and they really enjoyed seeing all the technology that our district offers. So great job to everybody involved in that.
Thank you. Dr. McShane?
Yeah, and actually, Mrs. Harvey kind of stole my thunder a little bit. I just wanted to thank everyone again for Tech Night. My daughters were able to attend with me, and they were blown away that there were robots in the cafeteria. They loved that. They loved seeing the drones, even though they're a little too young to fly them. But I think they're on the way home. They're already saying, I want to go back next time so that we can fly the drones. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Boyle and your whole team, and especially the students who were there, I think demonstrating, what you can do as a student in this district. I think I know it's sticking in my oldest daughter's mind right now, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. O'Boyle's in the back hiding. He's one of our administrators back there. So thank you and your team. Ms. Thornton?
Yes, there was one other thing that I wanted to just mention. So I am the PTA liaison, and the PTAs, the PTA presidents here in Hamilton get together, and they have been working diligently for over a year now, I would say, on something for the entire community, on something together, one Hamilton, something that would benefit our entire community. And I have to say, I commend them for their work. I commend them for their initiative, and it's finally coming full circle. They have been working on a program and working together to collect and move forward with a food insecurity initiative that would be able to provide a food for families in need here in Hamilton, in our community. And I'm hoping that they will be up and running very shortly. So please look in your community newsletters and things like that throughout your students' schools for donations or volunteering items. But again, I just want to thank them so much, because this is what we do together, and we come together and we put together such wonderful things for our community. And this truly is one Hamilton. So I want to thank them very much for it.
Thank you, Ms. Thornton. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. And does anybody have anything on the monthly suspension report? HIB report? Health report?
President,
Go ahead, Mr. Santana.
I was just wondering, I scared myself. I was just wondering, I'm looking at the numbers here. Where life-threatening allergies. What does that consist of? Can anybody give me an answer on that one? I mean, there's like almost 400 cases, and I'm assuming it's in this time period.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Mark.
So it could be anything that a student's allergic to, whether it's nuts, stuff outside, anything. So it's stuff that we do. A lot of the students have EpiPens for that we keep in the nurse's office, and we track it that way.
I was just wondering if there was no epidemic going around that we didn't know about.
No.
And for clarification, it's not incidents of allergic reactions. It's having the allergy itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is that all for those? Okay, board committee reports. We'll start with Mr. Kanka.
He said
Big surprise.
Thank you, Mrs. Harvey. Good evening, everyone.
You want mine?
I'm fed in the water. Good evening. We had our facilities and finance and operations committee initiatives meeting on May the 17th at 8:30 a.m. I want to thank Ms. Harvey and Mr. Salentano for attending, and everyone on the senior staff who was there. And Dr. Rocco started out with his report on general communications, talked about letters going out to families for the transition students, like 5th into 6th and 8th into 9th. There was we talked about the status of a gun violence proclamation. Then we moved into the finance and operation initiative items. First on the agenda was the food service renewal, which is on tonight's agenda, motion number 14. For one more year. Next year, the food service has to go out for an RFP as per statute. There is a guarantee to the to the district from the proceeds of the food service of $275,000. This year is $265,000. And what that money does is it's used for purchasing equipment that we can use in the kitchen throughout the whole district. Then we went into the lease purchase agreement that's on tonight's agenda for the purchasing of technology items, furnitures, STEM and art supplies, field hockey, soccer nets, and for the new athletic fields. Then we touched a little bit on the fiscal year 23 estimated budget surplus. As you know, with the budget was presented at the last month's meeting, and we are trying to reduce our costs to get our surplus in a more positive area, because we're right on the cusp of being on the lower end of the what they would like to see us be, where they would like to see us be. The demographic study has been received and is under review by the administration at this point. At this time, we talked about pre-K faculty grant. Facility grant opportunity for the district to apply for added classroom to enable for expansion. Then we moved into the track and the fields update, and I thank Dr. Rocco for allowing me to give this report. On the first one was the East Field, which is scheduled to start actually tomorrow, and that is on schedule as of right now. The West Field is completed. The North Field and the field is completed and the track is completed. The North Field is ongoing right now and is on schedule. There was some extra costs for some additional drainage, but that cost fell within the 5% contingency on the bid. Then we moved into a discussion on the use of the turf fields by outside users. It's an ongoing discussion. We touched briefly on how we're going to look into that and how it's going to be applied to the public. And as we make progress in that area, I will report on what the committee is going to recommend to the board and to the superintendent. Then we've touched on the summer the summer projects. There was a bid opening on the 16th that for the Mercerville kitchen, and those bids are being evaluated compared to the budgeted amount that was figured in for that particular project. Paving projects for Reynolds, Yardville, Steiner, Yarville Heights were to be awarded as reported, but there's still some review going on with the budget, with the bid language that was brought back by some specific contractors. Then there's the bids are still out on Wilson, University Heights, and the Yardville boiler. And under the food service, we touched on the excessive student debt. Letters went out to the parents who were in the rears of their obligations. Debt is being the debts are being caught up, but it's not enough where it's not enough to keep the debt down. The debt is still going up as I speak, even though we got money coming in from the action that the board took or the administration took, getting letters out to the people. And that concludes my report. If anybody on the board has any questions. Oh, I have one more clarification. There is an agenda item tonight. It's if anybody has any questions, it's the ACES contract. It's motion 15. What the ACES contract does is it's all the majority of the school districts in New Jersey belong to this ACES program. And what that program does is they search around for costs for electric and natural gas for the that we can purchase, and they search for the lowest possible price. It's a 5-year contract that we have with this organization, and that contract is up this year. In fact, it's up this month. So we're asking the board to renew that contract for another 5 years. They just shop around for us for the best price for energy. So, but then that's it. And that concludes my report. If anybody has any questions, I will take them.
Do you have anything on negotiations? Anything on negotiation?
Negotiations, nothing right now.
Dr. Ferraro?
Thank you, Mrs. Lombardo. I'm going to beg the indulgence of the audience. I guess my computer missed Mr. O'Boyle and it decided to die right before the meeting. The C&I committee met on May 17th and reviewed a number of items which appear on tonight's agenda. First, the board is being asked to renew an agreement with William Patterson University. This is the agreement that Dr. Rocco mentioned. He left you, Rich, with your fields and took my stuff. So we'll get him on track yet. So this dual enrollment agreement allows our students who take Spanish 3, 4, or AP Spanish to dually enroll with William Patterson to get 3 credit hours. So it costs a student $300. That's like $100 a credit hour. And so by the time they finish Spanish 3, Spanish 4, or even AP, if they take all 3, they would have 9 credits. And if they do well on the AP exam, they can also get another 3 credits. So by the time they're done here at HTSD, they will have earned 12 credit hours. And again, that's at $100 a credit hour or $300 a course. So the board is being asked to just approve that for another year. This is the 3rd year we've been doing this, and that's C&I item G8. As Dr. Rocco mentioned, the summer learning programs are being planned, and they will happen across the district and funded by ESSER. This month, the board is approving the list of teachers who will assist the C&I department in planning the lessons for the summer programs. In addition to the summer programs, the district will run Jumpstart to Algebra for 8th graders going into 9th, Jumpstart to Advanced Placement for high school students, and an ESL tutoring program for students in K-12. The approval for additional compensation to plan these programs is item 6 under personnel. And Mr. Scotto also informed the committee that next month the board will be asked to approve additional compensation for the teachers who will be working in these programs. The committee received an update on pre-K registration for our students who attend Title I schools. There are 90 seats available in the program, and 48 of them have been filled thus far. Ms. Ferlato, who is the Director of Guidance, spoke to the committee about 2 grant submissions that you will see on the agenda tonight. The first grant will be submitted to the U.S. government program known as SAMHSA. It stands for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. If awarded, the grant would provide the district with $970,000 per year for up to 4 years and would be used to fund mental health services for district students. This is C&I motion number 7 under submission of grants. It is a grant submission that the district is working with its Oaks Integrative. Is that correct, Ms. Ferlato? So, and one of the district parents brought this to our attention, so that's really great. Also under that motion is a request to approve the submission by Ms. Ferlato to Rutgers, which would fund a comprehensive school mental health support project for Wilson Elementary School. If received, the funding would provide multi-tiered systems of support for mental health services at Wilson. The program would also provide professional development and resources. Ms. Ferlato could only choose one school in the district to participate. That was a Rutgers rule, and Wilson was agreeable and showed interest in piloting the project. Ms. Ferlato also told us that master scheduling at the high school is progressing. She and the counselors are also evaluating several platforms which are like Naviance to see if there's a better option for the district. Naviance is a 20-year-old program that helps students identify colleges they might like to go to, helps them practice for exams, helps them practice to write essays. But the interface has not changed in 20 years. And in fact, some of the options which used to be provided through Naviance for one fee, are now being charged at separate prices. So the board will be getting a demonstration about a platform under consideration before we take a vote, and you'll be able to ask your questions. Ms. Ferlato is also looking at a different platform to use to be documenting HIB incidents. And then the committee meeting ended when Mrs. Byrne informed members that she had requested a review of the transgender policy, which is 5756, to be done during this meeting under other business. And that's all I have to report.
Anybody have any questions?
You say that last part one more time?
I'm sorry, the
You
one
say
about
that last part at the
the
end?
last part?
Yeah.
At the end of the meeting, Mrs. Byrne informed me that she had been told to tell me that we would be reviewing the transgender policy 5756 during other business tonight. Okay.
Mrs. Byrne, did you hear that?
Yep.
What's that? Did you hear?
Did you hear
Dr.
that?
Farrar said?
I mean, I,
Heard it.
yes, I heard it. That's
Okay.
what I said.
Sorry.
Okay.
what?
Mrs. Thornton?
Yes, thank you. So the Personnel Committee met on May 17th, and we discussed various items. We did have an update on the turf and fields and the track. We also discussed the pre-K grant, as well as you'll see on the agenda, which I believe is up for motion, which is the resolution to support S3203. We also discussed, as you will see on a motion for this evening, the virtual academy for the 23-24 school year, and ongoing discussions of recruitment for vacant positions throughout the district. That is all I have.
Well, anybody have any questions for Ms. Thornton? Okay, seeing none. That brings us to hearing of the public on agenda items only.
Excuse me, Ms. Lombardo. My ad hoc committee had its report.
No? Okay, sorry, Ms. Harvey, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm reporting on the committee that reviewed the book Gender Queer. I want to thank my committee, Francis Moraja, Kristen Maines, Renee Rogers, Ravi Delia, and Frank Ragazzo. Each of these people put in a lot of work to putting together this report and reviewing the issues to help this board with this matter. The committee reviewing the book Gender Queer has issued its report evaluating the suitability of the book to remain on the shelves in our high school libraries. The committee members each read the book, discussed it at 5 meetings, and collaborated to draft a substantial report. The book has a literary and educational value that further complements state-mandated curricula. The committee concludes, due to the book meeting the factors under policies 2530 and 9130, it should remain on the shelf. So the book.
Can we let her finish, please?
That's not the conclusion of my report. This is a Mr. Kankus style report. The book, Gender Queer, is a graphic autobiographical memoir authored by Maya Kobabe. Maya was born a girl, but her preferred pronoun, never felt comfortable as a woman. In the book, explains it's more about not being female than being male. Maya further notes that does not want to take hormones because I don't want more gender traits, I want less. Maya explains it's not about being male or female. Maya concludes that is asexual and identifies as non-binary. The policy. So our policy states the committee will report its findings to the board. No challenge material may be removed from the curriculum or from a collection of resource materials except by action of the Board of Education. And no challenge material may be removed solely because it presents ideas that may be unpopular or offensive to some. Any board action to remove material will be accompanied by the board's statement of its reasons for the removal. The committee reviewed the work as a whole with regard to the following factors outlined in policy 2530 resource materials. So I will go through each factor one by one. Factor 1, suited to the varied interests, abilities, reading levels, and maturation levels of the pupils to be served. The book is an easy-to-read graphic novel appealing to the varied interests, including those exploring gender identity, those who want to understand the struggles of a non-binary or asexual person, and a general coming-of-age autobiography. For the maturation level of the pupils served, our high schools have 30% below the age of 16 and 70% above the age of 16, with the average first-year student starting high school at the age of 14. The author stated wrote for those 16 and older. Therefore, the majority of high school students fall within the author's target audience. The plain language of the policy indicates that varied modifies a student's abilities, reading levels, and maturation levels. So this factor favors keeping the book in the library as the book meets the maturation levels of the majority of students served at our high schools. Only students enrolled in the high school are able to check out Gender Queer. However, students at Hamilton West or Steiner, where the book is not currently in the collection, are able to request the book through interlibrary loan. It bears emphasizing that younger students in middle school or elementary school are not permitted access to the book through interlibrary loan. Professional reviews cite age ranges of grades 9 and up, grades 9 to 12, and mature teens. Gender Queer has won multiple awards and appears on numerous lists of books for teens, young adults, and high school students. Given our libraries are open to all high school students, the book suits the majority level of at least the majority of high school students, and those majority should not be limited even if a first-year student is deemed too immature for the subject matter. Factor 2. Wherever possible, materials will provide major opposing views on controversial issues so that pupils may develop under guidance the practice of critical thinking and reading. The insights and experiences shared by the author can help readers build empathy, understanding, and acceptance of questioning and gender non-conforming peers and other individuals. This empathy, understanding, and acceptance can be essential to the well-being of our most at-risk students who are transgender or non-binary. Factor 3, wherever possible, materials will represent the many religious, ethnic, and cultural groups and their contribution to American heritage. This factor is served because Maya's work represents an underrepresented cultural group, those of the non-binary and asexual. Factor 4, materials will be factually accurate and of genuine literary or artistic value. This factor is met because the work is an autobiographical account of the author's struggles with gender identity. The book as a whole has literary value in bringing awareness and understanding to an underrepresented person's journey towards self-awareness and understanding of gender. This memoir has artistic value in the way the author is able to weave The trials and tribulations of coming to terms with air sexuality and gender identity. Again, Genderqueer has won multiple awards, recognizing its literary and artistic merit. It is worth noting that the Journal of the American Medical Association recommended this book to medical professionals based upon its value as a window into the struggles of non-binary patients. Factor 5, materials will be of a quality and durability appropriate to their intended uses and longevity. The book is in good shape as it was purchased in the last year. Our high school libraries include many paperback graphic novels of similar quality. Factor 6, materials will relate to, support, and enrich the courses of study adopted by the board. The book meets many district policies. For instance, it meets outcome goals 3, 5, 8, and 9 of policy 2132. It further meets standards set by state law. NJSA 18A:35-4.36, requiring the Board of Education to select inclusive materials, including those examining unconscious bias and gender identity. And NJSA 18A:35-4.35, requiring boards of education to include instruction to high school students on transgender people. The book also meets the 2020 Health Standard Curriculum, specifically 2.1.12 SSH.3, analyze current social issues affecting perceptions of sexuality, culture, ethnicity, disability status, and make recommendations to address those issues. And 2.1.12 SSH.5, demonstrate ways to show respect for the boundaries of others as they relate to intimacy and sexual behavior. Under the 2014 standards, which are currently in adoption for this district, the book meets required curriculum as well. Content standard, discussion of topics regarding sexuality requires a safe, supportive environment where sensitivity and respect is shown toward all. 2.4.12.B4, compare and contrast attitudes and beliefs about gender identity, sexual orientation, and gender equity across cultures. In addition to applying these factors under the policy, the committee requested information regarding obscenity laws and the First Amendment. Patrick Carried, board attorney, provided a lesson regarding the applicable laws. In summary, quote, local school boards may not remove books from school libraries simply because they dislike the ideas contained in those books and seek by their removal to prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion, end quote. And that's from the PICO decision. In terms of the rights of students to access library books, the United States Supreme Court has explained, quote, the right to read a book is an aspect of the right to receive information and ideas, an inherent corollary of the rights of free speech and press that are expressly guaranteed by our Constitution. And that's from the Counts decision, quoting PICO. Although the complainants cite to the graphic depiction of sex in Genderqueer, material that is about sex, but has an artistic, literary, or scientific value does not fall within the definition of obscenity. And that's from the recent New Jersey Appellate Division case, State v. Higginbotham. The court in United States v. Miller noted the test for obscenity is 1, whether the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the work taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest. 2, whether the work depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct specifically defined by the applicable state law, and so it's required for all 3 that whether the work taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. The appellate division in Higginbotham noted that cartoon images cannot constitute child pornography. Quote, students must always remain free to inquire, to study, and to evaluate, to gain new maturity and understanding. The school library is the principal locus of that freedom, and that's from the United States Supreme Court in PICO. The court further explained that this board's discretion to remove a book from the library is not absolute. The decision cannot be based upon a political ideology or a disagreement with the ideas in a book. It bears noting that the First Amendment protections only arise after the district has purchased and placed the book in the library. The district does not have to select every book, but once it has been selected under our policy and placed on the bookshelf, we are obligated to follow our policy for its removal. Obscene material is material which deals with sex in a manner appealing to the prurient interest, and that's from Roth v. US. The portrayal of sex, for example, in art, literature, and scientific works, is not itself sufficient reason to deny material the constitutional protection of freedom of speech and press. Here, the work has a literary purpose, explaining gender identity, how a person can be asexual, and addressing the journey of a non-binary person. The book further addresses the conflicts among the LGBTQ community, such as a feminist lesbian's response to a non-binary person's asexuality. Genderqueer is not obscene because the work as a whole has educational and literary value. The author is not attempting to be patently offensive and instead uses the images in the work to explain their point of view. In an interview with the Texas Tribune, the author stated, quote, "I also want to have the best interests of young people at heart. There are queer youth at every high school, and those students, that's who I'm thinking about, is the queer student who is getting left behind," end quote. The author wrote the book to speak to the queer youth in high school so that they would not feel as lost as this author did during her high school experience. The graphic images of sexual intercourse are not meant to fulfill a prurient interest, but rather, when read in the context of the whole work, to explain how these experiences help the author realizes that the author was asexual based upon Ayer's response to those sexual encounters. The claim that isolated images and/or genderqueer as a whole is pornography does not have merit. The images and passages in question are not presented for the purposes of sexual gratification. Instead, the panels in question tell the author's personal story in a frank, honest, and informational manner. None of the images in question involve children. One panel references classical Greek art and literature, and the other panel is set in a positive context of consent and communication between partners. To call the images pornographic would be to ignore the meaning of the images combined with the words. Because this board should be reviewing the work as a whole after having read the book, it cannot look at the images in isolation. The two complaints allege that the work should be banned due to the graphic nature of some of the pictures in the book. The complainants viewed certain images as pornographic and inappropriate for children. But as explained, the work must be read as a whole and within context. Given the author used the graphic images as a means to express the author's purpose regarding feeling asexual and alienated from the author's own body, the book falls within protected speech under the Miller test and New Jersey law. One of the complainants that states that there is no educational value to the book overlooks state-required curricula and that this library book provides further voluntary reading in conjunction with that required curricula. The images that the complainants have found objectionable are used for a literary purpose to further the author's narrative as to why the author feels genderless. The images are used to convey the experience of an asexual person identifying as non-binary. It bears noting one of the committee members' comments based upon the members' work with children in our district. Quote, "This book could save a student's life," end quote.
Is that it, Ms. Harvey?
That comment went to the alienation that non-binary students feel, and that this book can bridge the gap between a person who identifies as non-binary and one who does not. The book provides understanding of a person who does not fit into the stereotypes of gender. The book at issue was added to the Nottingham Library in December of 2021. While one of the complaints states the book is available as an ebook to our students, it is not. So far, there have been no disciplinary issues associated with the book. One of the complainants' concerns regarding risky behaviors based upon having access to the book have not arisen. The one complaint suggests that high school students cannot read genderqueer because the reader will engage in sexual situations due to the immaturity of the student's brains. There is no basis for this logical fallacy. Books exist as a safe place for people to learn. To think that simply reading a book will automatically cause a person to repeat behavior in a book would mean people who read Of Mice and Men will kill their brother, people who read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas will use copious amounts of illegal drugs, and people who read In Cold Blood will commit murder in cold blood. There is simply no basis for the statement. Moreover, the claim misses the entire point that the author of Genderqueer makes. Through the sexual experiences identified in the book, their author realizes that E is asexual. E does not get any gratification from sex. Taking the complainant's claim to the logical conclusion, the book actually encourages abstinence and thus would not effectuate the harm that the complainant identifies. One of the complaints further mentions the rating system of the Motion Picture Association of America. That rating system is a voluntary system enacted by movie houses and the movie industry. It bears noting that prior to the MPAA, ordinances were struck as unconstitutional when local governing bodies attempted to censor films. And that's Interstate Circus, Inc. versus Dallas, a U.S. Supreme Court case. The committee discussed the age rating of the book, finding it was appropriate for high schoolers, relying upon independent raters, which ranged from as low as 14 to others rating it for 16 and older. The ratings demonstrate that the book is appropriate for the majority of high school students. If the book is removed because of an arbitrary guideline that 14 and 15-year-olds are not mature enough for the book, then the First Amendment rights of the majority of students in our school, those 16 and older, are violated because removing the book from the shelves removes it for all. Yet, the majority of our high school students have a protected constitutional right to read the book. Furthermore, whether the minority of 14 and 15-year-olds have the maturity level for the book is subjective and dependent upon each student. A student's maturity is fact-specific and individualized for each student. Cases have rejected less restrictive alternatives to a complete ban, such as creation of a special library section, parental consent, or an age requirement for borrowing the book. Counts versus Cedarville School District. This is because it stigmatizes the book. For instance, this public and this board have stigmatized genderqueer, fostering a student's fear that possession of the book could be a violation of the Code of Student Conduct, or worse, has been stated at public board meetings that the book constitutes illegal child pornography, which it does not, because it does not meet the Miller test for being a work of literary and educational value. These comments have created a chilling effect on borrowing the book from the library. As one court noted, a student's First Amendment rights are burdened because the books in question are stigmatized, with resulting stigmatization of those who choose to read them. Quote, children carrying the book with them in the school will be known to be carrying a bad book, end quote. It should also be noted that even if genderqueer can be borrowed from the Hamilton Township Library, that access does not justify this board in banning the book. As the United States Supreme Court explained, quote, one is not to have the exercise of his liberty of expression in appropriate places abridged on the plea that it may be exercised in some other place, end quote. The informal complaints regarding genderqueer were raised at public meetings over a year ago before any formal complaint was filed under our policy. At that time, I posed as an inquiry to this board that there could be a policy change to satisfy the concerns. The current policy remains in effect though, and therefore, under that current policy, either the book remains on the shelf or the board must set forth its reasons for pulling the book in a non-discriminatory manner. The board is bound by its policy. The committee, after each member reviewing the book, found that the book had literary and educational value. In fact, the book complements New Jersey's laws and required curricula regarding gender identity. The book is a lesson for a person to understand and empathize with the struggles of being asexual and identifying as non-binary. The positive message for someone struggling with gender identity or wanting to understand the experience of someone going through this struggle outweighs any of the theoretical harm alleged in the complaints. Based upon all of these factors, the committee recommends that genderqueer remain on the shelf at Nottingham Library and accessible to all high school students in our district.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We have to have board member questions, so does any board members have anything to ask Ms. Harvey?
I'm sorry.
Ms. Thornton?
What did you say?
She's asking for questions.
Oh, questions.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes, I do have a question.
And then I have something too.
So thank you very much, Ms. Harvey. That was a very detailed report, so thank you very much. Um, I think you passed Mr. Kanka, just saying. In regards to the committee, so after reading the report, I just had a quick question. So the committee met several times, and I thank you for that and the time and effort that you put into it. Was the decision unanimous to move forward with the decision, or was it a unanimous decision to move forward?
So that answer is a yes. However, not everybody agreed with the conclusion. So everybody did sign off on the report, but there was a dissent to the conclusion that the book remain on the
Not
shelf.
everyone agreed with the final decision.
Correct.
That's not unanimous. Right?
No.
Well, but we all signed off on the report, saying it represented the committee as a whole.
Ms. Thornton, you have anything? That was it. I just have a couple facts, and this has nothing to do with keeping the book on the shelf or not. I asked for a report to be run just so I can get a better look at how much this book has been taken out and the other 5 books. So just for a little information for the crowd, and for both sides of this discussion that's been going on for almost a year, if not a little more. I just want to give you some facts and just hear me out, please, be patient. For this particular book, it's not currently in Steiner's library. It's not currently in Hamilton West Library. It's not available on the electronic app that we have. It's in Nottingham's library. It's been there since 2021. It's been taken out 2 times, one by the principal and one by a board member. And recently, in the last week, just hear me out, please. Just please, you've all obviously signed up, so just let me speak. And a board member within the last week. The other books, Quick Guide to, I'm sorry, that's just small writing, to Queer and Trans Identities. It's not in Nottingham's library. Since 2019, it's never been taken out at Steiner, the only school it's in. Hamilton West is not in their library. All boys aren't blue. And I'm just stuttering because the writing is very, very small and I'm very blind. Since 2021, it's never been taken out at Nottingham. It's been taken out 1 time at Steiner, and we know that that was an adult. And at Hamilton West, it's not even in that school, and it's not available on the electronic. Beyond Magenta, since 2014, that's almost 10 years, it's only been taken out once at Nottingham. Twice at Nottingham. At Steiner, it's only been taken out 1 time and 0 times at Hamilton West. The Bluest Eye, since 2013, it's been taken out 1 time at Nottingham, 1 time at Steiner, and 1 time at Hamilton West. And they were all in one was 2023, and that was an adult. And the other 2 one was back in 2013 and one was 2016. Flamer, never been taken out at Nottingham, is not at Hamilton West or on electronic. At Steiner, we know that it was 3 adults that took it out in 2022 and 2023. Gender Queer, since 12/21, it's been taken out twice. I think I already read this one. And that was a principal and a board member. This book is gay. It's not at Nottingham High School. It's been taken out in since 2017. It just now was taken out since this debate has begun in 2022 and 2023. And they've been adults. And it has not been taken, it's not in Hamilton West. So I'm only bringing this up because we have spent 1.5 years on both sides arguing about a books or plural, books, books, that none of our students have taken out. And if this one person back in 2013 took it out, we don't know if it was the principal at the school, a teacher, or a student, because it was 2013. That's 10 years ago. So we have now spent a year and a half arguing over a book that nobody ever took out, and some of them aren't even in our schools. But nobody here even asked us what $900,000 in security is going to do to save our kids and keep them safe.
Yep.
Which all the stuff that's been going on in this country and in our states. I mean, today was the anniversary of the kids from last year. We're putting more money into special education. Not one person from either side has asked questions about that. We're putting more money in basic skills. Some of you may or may not like it, but we put money into the turf fields to make all sports have a better, area to play. All the fields had needed reconstruction. Tons of education is going into this district, and our administration has worked tirelessly on a lot of important things. I'm not saying this isn't important. What I'm saying is we have had both sides come here and argue, and tonight we have signed up about the gender policy over an hour and a half if we go with everybody, about a policy that none of these books are even taken out by students. And until this has been brought up this last year and a half, nobody's even looked at these books. So I'm not saying that I'm for or against. I definitely support transgender. I support gay. I have them both in my family. I support all races. My son-in-law is African-American. But what I'm saying is, can we please, it's a year and a half. And our students that you're all worried about taking this book out or not taking it out or whatever your own belief is, they're not even touching it. It's been adults, and it's been the people that want to either are for the book, not for the book. But since 2013, one person taking out a book, I don't think is that big of a deal. Our students are downloading them on computers or looking on their phones. So I understand, but I had to say this. I had to get this information from Dr. Rocco, and we both were pretty surprised when we got the information that some of these books aren't even in our high schools. And the ones they're in, nobody took them out. So the students don't even know they're there. So they're definitely not going to get them for education. So let's just all remember that. And all of us up here, you think that we're against a certain gender or sexual orientation or something, but sometimes it is just about a picture. So I just needed to get that information out there because I want it both sides, I'm not saying this for one or the other, to know how much those books have not been looked at. 0 times or 1 time since 2013. That's 10 years.
Mrs. Lombardo, I just want to.
So
just because you just said that they've only been looked at 1 time, but that's not accurate because they might have been checked out, but books are available in our library shelves. Students are able to go during their lunch periods.
We ran a report for all of that, and that's what it came out to.
How they're able to, you can just view a book on a library shelf without checking it out. And in fact, some of these books.
Ms. Harvey, I don't want to debate with you. I'm just saying about being checked out. And I don't think you can read a book in the time that you're in class, this big books. They've never been taken home or checked out or studied. So you could read it in the library. Yes, you can, but you'd have to go back every day to read the book.
Right. And that is
checkouts were 0. And they're not into schools to even look at. I'm just trying to get some information out there for everybody. I don't want to debate anybody up here. I'm just giving the information out. Does anybody else have any questions before we move to hearing of the public?
Madam President,
Go ahead, Mr. Solentano.
Ms. Lombardo, I would agree with you 100% in what you just said. But I think the issue that I see before us is there is an assumption that a member or members or this Board of Education or this administration is downplaying the significance of the LGBTQ community. And I don't see that. I think the issue was whether or not these books are appropriate for youngsters at certain age groups. High school, I'll grant you that. If I were in high school, yeah, I'd like to look at some books like that and read the stories. It may or may not have an effect on me. And back to Mrs. Harvey, the report that you had and read to us tonight, if that's in a digital format or any kind of format, I would love to have a copy of it. And I think every board member deserves a copy of it. And I do have a question for you.
There is a report on your board docs. There's a whole.
Apparently, when was that put out there? Because I'm not on board docs 24/7. Again, I'll tell everybody out there, if you're trying to get in touch with me, contact me through an email, a text message, knock on my door. I am not on board docs or a computer or Facebook or anything like that 24/7. Now, there are some people that's their life, but it's not my life. I'll accommodate any one of you. We'll have coffee if we have to. But my question again to some of the folks that are going spastic over this, do you have children at home? And I ask you, if you have young children, elementary age children, and maybe even middle school children, did you read it to them? Did you read it to them? That's a question I have. I mean, I'm on your side, to be honest with you, but the fact of the matter is, your children, I'm talking about your children. Yep. Good. Okay, that's fine. And I'm proud of you.
We can't.
Okay,
Mr.
we're not gonna have a
Santana,
conversation.
Can't go back and
She's
forth.
right,
Can
you're
you
right.
just finish your comment? So
You're
we can-
right. You're right.
I have a question, Madam President.
Wait a minute, Tony, Mr. Sound.
No, go ahead. You can go. I'm not really finished, but that's fine.
Go ahead, Ms. Burns.
So I'm new to the board, but several months ago, we decommissioned hundreds of books that weren't circulating. We've sat here tonight and we have discussed that genderqueer has not been circulating. Is that not sufficient reason to decommission the book like we have done hundreds as a board?
Just let her, excuse me, give her time to finish. Just let her finish. You have to hear her out first, like we're going to hear everybody else out.
I
Go ahead.
appreciate the committee's review and their comments, but I too have spoken to council. And I have been informed that there are reasons why this board could legitimately decommission, not ban. Nobody here is for banning any books. Let me make that clear. Excuse me, I have the floor.
Let
Excuse
her
me.
speak, please.
I have the floor. Thank you. There are 3 reasons why this board could legitimately decommission this book like we have decommissioned hundreds of books. Okay? Number 1, the book is not age appropriate. An argument could be made, and there are some board members that feel this book is not age appropriate. Number 2, the book does not coincide with our curriculum. In January, Mr. Scotto went through an extreme curriculum and explained to the people out in the audience the terminology that this board as a whole, as a majority, the terminology and definitions that we have struck from the 2020 curriculum. This book and a lot of the books that are under review specifically cover those definitions that we as a board have struck from the curriculum. And number 3, this book has not been circulating, which we have just heard. Now, I want to quote another board member who, when we decommissioned the books a couple months ago, this was what our seasoned board member had to say. She said, "I think we can all agree that libraries are not museums. They are not cedar chests. If kids aren't taking out books, then why leave them on the shelf? And when books are decommissioned, students are allowed to take them home. Nothing sinister is going on here unless one sees sinister everywhere one looks. The same applies for this book and all the books who are being under review." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Ms. Thornton, did you have something to say? Okay, anybody else? Are we done?
We're good. For now.
Okay, moving on, we have the hearing of the public.
I have a question, actually, just for my own clarity. Is this something that the committee has, that committee that Christina ran, and great job, very thorough report. Is that done? Is that something that we are voting on
What
tonight?
are you asking, Liam?
Are we voting on the recommendation of that committee?
As of now, nothing happens unless somebody on the board makes a motion to do something else other than what the committee said.
Okay, so unless someone makes a motion to do that, the committee has made the decision and that's the decision made.
Apparently, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Meeting. Hearing of the public on agenda items only. First, we have Steve Greigel on obscenity laws. Regal. Sorry.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I know you were happy to see me and get more information from me today, so I'll try to stay within the 4 minutes. It hasn't started yet.
You're gonna have to speak up a little bit. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me right
Now we
now?
can.
Okay. I want everybody to hear me, not only on the board, but out there. It's pretty unanimous across the board, and it's pretty obvious that everybody cares about every kid. They care about LGBTQ kids, straight kids, any type of kids. The distinction that I've been trying to make to the board is something that wasn't brought up today, but I have brought it up to the board in what I've written, is the Miller test is a test of when something is illegally obscene. It's illegal. That's when you get the cuffs put on you, when the prosecutor comes. PICO is a Supreme Court case. No matter whether it was unanimous or not, that is authority, which is precedential for us, and it is our law, so we must follow it. The PICO case says you can't take all the books out if it's your intent. You can't take out all the Christian books because you don't like them. You can't take out all the gay books because you don't like them. I don't have a problem with that. But PICO makes it very clear that from that point all the way up to the point of illegality, there are numerous reasons. There's not just three, there's numerous reasons why you can remove those books, and it goes to your discretion if they're appropriate. I just heard this report. I'm glad they did such a thorough report, but to say that 14 and 15-year-olds aren't appropriate to read it, and that's somehow going to violate the rights of 16 and 17-year-olds, that makes no sense. You're giving it to kids who it's not appropriate for. But what I'm worried about is the law that wasn't talked about, and this was the 2003, look it up, the 2003 Protect Act, which was passed by Congress and signed by the president, which says there's a compelling interest to not normalize pedophilia, to not normalize illegal sex acts.
Excuse me, give him his chance to speak.
See, I'm telling you, I'm telling you, I'm caring about your kids, and you're still, no.
Excuse me, let him speak, please. Let him speak. Go ahead. Continue speaking.
You can't even say that you care about somebody's kids, okay? So this town is not the only town. Many towns have a problem with pedophilia and illegal sex acts. My problem with this books is not that I don't care about the kids, it's that I do. In the book that you guys are talking about, whether they flower it up and make it look like it's Greek or it's Roman or whatever, it's a fantasy of a young girl having a fantasy of a 10-year-old boy being raped by an adult with a beard, okay? There's a compelling government interest, not by Steve Greigel, but by the Congress, that says you can't normalize that, because that's what people use when they normalize in their minds. It makes them more prone to these dangerous activities. Also in this book is illegal sex acts of children doing things to each other, oral sex, that are illegal, okay? I'm doing this because I care about the kids, and I know that there is pedophilia out there. I know there's illegal sex acts, and these depictions are illegal. There's also another book that I told you about that we're going to get to later on, where older kids take a 7-year-old into a tent. He's about 7-year-olds, and they'll masturbate into a Mountain Dew bottle. And if the 7-year-old can't do it, he's got to drink it. Okay, that's an illegal sex act that shouldn't be depicted in a book. It's illegal per federal law that was not discussed today. And in the last, I think I should have more than 27 seconds, but what I'm going to, because I got interrupted, but what I'm going to say is when you're looking for policy and you guys have made a decision, and that's fine to have your own subjective decision. But when you're making a policy that's going to determine what you should do what rational people could determine. Because if you think 40, 50, 60% of the people could determine that these books are inappropriate, you're going to subject the taxpayers to money, to millions of dollars of lawsuits like are going in.
Thank you.
I'll be done in a second. And
No,
you're going to
thank you.
subject,
Time is up.
and I've been interrupted, and you're going to subject
Thank
children
you.
to being
Thank you.
abused.
Joanne Bruno?
And I was interrupted. So thank you very much for giving me the extra 20 seconds.
It is my understanding that the April meeting, the board read and passed the transgender policy with unanimous approval. When I read the policy, it gave me a sigh of relief to know that the board would approve it as it was. It protects the children in our district who are, excuse me, among the most vulnerable to be bullied by others who misunderstand them. It is my hope that the board is not considering changing this policy. It is something that works as it is. If a board member or members are not comfortable with it, it seems to me that it is not made for them to begin with. It is made for the children in order to help them feel comfortable, excuse me, and safe. If a board member, if you are not all right with the differences we have in the ethnicity, sexual differences, religious beliefs, etc., of the students, parents, or community members in the Hamilton district, you are certainly welcome to recuse yourself from your position on the board. No one would blame you for leaving if you were unable to perform your duties due to the prejudices or beliefs that you were in conflict with. It would actually be preferential for you to leave and have someone more accepting of differences to have your seat on the board, making decisions that would affect the entire school population. The policies of this board should not have to conform to fit the needs of or beliefs of any one board member. The board members should, I'm sorry, I can hardly say here, should be representing the entire population of the majority of the 100,000 people who live and support the school systems in Hamilton Township, not 1/3 of the population, the majority of the population. We want our children to feel safe in the school environment. We don't want books to be banned. We don't want members of the board saying that the teachers are groomers or any other non-existing nonsense that is being said and done across the nation right now with the right-wing extremist groups trying to take control of our schools. Kids can learn more about sex and porn on cell phones than they can learn in our school libraries. If you don't like how our schools are run, please go start your own school and leave our schools alone. By the way, don't ask us for money to pay for them. And if you're here from a religious group and you have objections to the way we're running our schools and you're going to go and complain about what we're doing, maybe you should take a look in your own backyard before you come here and tell us what we should be doing. Thank you.
Next, the next person up is, I can't read this at all. I think it's, the initials are MN. Is it Maribel, Michael? I can't tell.
Margot, no, it's not Margot.
Michael? Sorry, just, I couldn't tell what the handwriting said.
It is actually Michael Myers.
There you go, Michael.
Okay.
Well, we won't forget that.
Well, we won't, no. And I just wanted to thank the board for the comments that they made, especially the earlier comments about accepting LGBTQ students. 21 years ago, my husband Peter's family strongly encouraged us to move to Hamilton. It was the wisest decision we made. Hamilton is an extremely friendly, inclusive, and warmly welcoming community. Please, let's keep it that way. Our family supports the dignity and worth of every student. We are particularly concerned about LGBTQ students. We do not want them to be bullied, intimidated, or harassed in any way. We want every student in the Hamilton High Schools to achieve the fullest potential in their learning experience and go on to live happy lives. That's what everyone wants. And our family also supports that every student, our LGBTQ students included, be respected and valued and just achieve every happiness within their learning experience and within the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Stephen Valero. Did I get that right?
My name is Stephen Valerio. I am a parent of 2 children in the Hamilton School District who I love very much, and I care about all the kids in the school district. Many of these children are marginalized. They have been for years, particularly the LGBT community, which I, as a bisexual, am part of. I've seen it firsthand. As a teenager, I wore dresses. I went to an art school. I got lucky, but as soon as I walked out of those school grounds, I was physically attacked by people. In 1998 is when I graduated high school. The same year that Matthew Shepard was beaten, tortured, and left to die, tied to a barbed wire fence, right? And most of these problems in our history, no matter what marginalized group we're talking about, are because of a lack of education and a lack of understanding of people other than ourselves, people being insular, people holding on to the ideas that they have instead of expanding their minds through education. Education comes through health education, right? Because I know that this transgender policy is being reviewed, even though everybody accepted it, but now all of a sudden it's being reviewed again. And education is so important because it is misused so often when we marginalize people. In the beginning of our country, Native Americans were forced to abandon their culture, abandon their lifestyle, abandon their languages so that a certain group could take power, right, and oppress them. And they've almost been eradicated from our country. The same thing has happened with African slaves during the days of slavery, up through the Jim Crow era. Still today it happens, but in the Jim Crow era, there would be cars driving around saying, save our, right, always under the guise of saving our children, when really it's about oppressing children. It's signs saying, save our children from the Black Plague. They were not talking about the bubonic one, okay? And today we're targeting transgender students. We have Michael Knowles saying we need to eradicate transgenderism, trying to claim, oh no, this isn't about genocide. This isn't about getting rid of transgender people. It's about transgenderism. Can you get rid of Christianity without committing genocide against Christians? Can you get rid of Judaism without committing genocide against the Jews? Okay. It's all about trying to control the narrative and suppress education. We would actually know a lot more and be a lot more accepting had there not been an attack on education in 1933 in Germany. One of the first acts of the Nazis, shortly after opening Dachau, but before dismissing the Jews and taking away Jewish citizenship, they vandalized, occupied, and destroyed the research of the Institute of Sexology in Germany, which was a leader in exploring not only LGBTQ sexual orientations and information, but also the sex amongst regular people. It was about education. It was about health. It was about having all the knowledge you can be to be a healthy, happy, full person. And that's all that we want for our kids. We want them to be happy, healthy, knowledgeable of what they can be, who they can be, of everything they are, and to know that they are not evil for being transgender, for being any other part of the LGBTQ community, any kind of queer. They're not evil, they're not wrong, they're not bad. They are normal people. This is a part of life. All of science has been pointing to that. All of the major medical organizations in the United States say gender affirming care and understanding being transgender, being LGBTQ saves lives. It saves lives because people understand that they can exist instead of being told that they don't exist or that they can't exist. Transgender people exist, gay people exist, bisexual people exist. We exist, we're here. And that's not being forced on anyone. You know who you are when
Thank
you
you,
know
sir.
about who you can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our 20 minutes for hearing of the public on the agenda items only. So we can, we were done with our 20 minutes unless we.
I make a motion to
Excuse
it.
me, can you please let me finish talking?
I make a motion that
Can
we,
you please let me finish speaking, ma'am? Just let me finish speaking, okay? Unless we
motion that
decide
we
to
extend
extend,
it.
which will be another hour and a half.
that's fine. I make a motion to extend another 20 minutes.
Not everybody will get to speak even then, so I don't think we should make that motion unless we're gonna cover everybody, because I'm not gonna keep doing it until we're up to an hour and a half.
So Mrs. Lombardo, how many minutes?
Excuse me, can you please let us discuss this? What happens is, excuse me, ma'am. Again, I'm gonna have a security come because you already disrupted our lawyer during his presentation. So please just let me speak.
Yeah.
The policy states it's 20 minutes for the hearing of the public, unless this board decides to extend it. We have 2 pages of people, which will take us almost an hour to do from this point. And then we have the second hearing of the public. Everybody that signed up has the exact same subject on here. So this Board of Education, if we keep doing it every 20 minutes, it's going to take us to an hour, another hour. So either we do not extend it and we move on and go to the second hearing of the public, or we figure out another way to get everybody in without 4 minutes, because this is not going to work. And we have teachers out here that have been here all night waiting for their turn.
I would ask for a friendly amendment to Dr. Ferrara's motion that everyone be given 2 minutes that's on that list.
Okay, and
rather
if
than
we do
4.
2 minutes, how long do we need?
How many got?
30 minutes.
30
It
minutes?
should be a half hour.
I'll second her friendly amendment. Thank you for the friendly amendment.
So then
We
I
have
will
to do a
second
roll
motion.
call. Ms. Atwood,
Is on the agenda.
somebody, who
2
made the
minutes
motion?
for the rest of the speakers on the list.
Who was the second?
Dr. Ferrara second, she accepted my
You seconded?
amendment, and so I seconded.
But her original.
I seconded her
Okay.
her original.
So we have 3 seconds and a first, so pick whichever
So
one
we
you
have to
want.
approve that first before we do the
We
amendment.
just got to move on so we can get.
No, it
this
was a
done.
friendly amendment, so because she's the movement, we can just call the roll call.
Okay with that?
Can we just do whatever we need to do?
So my understanding of friendly amendment, it has to be unanimously consented to.
Right.
So first question would be, is there any objection to the friendly amendment?
No.
About the first motion.
You gotta clear that.
So if there's no objection to the friendly amendment, then it does amend the original motion, and then the original motion then becomes a motion to extend public comment for 30 minutes.
At 2 minutes each. I don't know, I'll be the second. If
I was
nobody's
second on the
Doesn't
original.
matter. I think
Jason
it
was
was, I think it was, Jason.
Dr. McSheehan,
Yes.
I would do a roll call, yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Anka?
Yes.
Dr. Machine?
Yes.
Thornton?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Salantano?
Yes.
Dr. Farrar? Yes. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Ms. Lombardo?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Colleen Ephraim. So now we're at 2 minutes, so we can get everybody in. Thank you.
You know, Mrs. Lombardo, if people would line up, it might be faster.
Excuse me?
If they line up in the aisle, it might be faster.
It's okay. I'll call the second one next. Go ahead.
It's very important to me that I am here to speak today and that you hear my story. We moved here in 2016 and my wife came out as transgender in 2017. At that time, our daughter was in first grade. One of the first things we looked at was the school policy, and we were so relieved to see the inclusive policy regarding transgender students. It is a model policy. And if I felt that way as a 40-year-old adult, I can't imagine how a young transgender student feels knowing that they have that policy protecting them. And that I agree with a lot of what the speakers have said before, so I will not use up any more time. I just wanted you to know how important that policy was and how much it means to people.
Thank you. Mark Schmidt. And Joanne Weissman, Wellman, you're next. So Mark Schmidt.
Sorry, it's a little hard to hear you with the applause.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Mark Smith, and I am a 30-year Hamilton resident and a graduate of Princeton Seminary and a working hospice and healthcare chaplain. I am here tonight to thank you for keeping the book Genderqueer on the shelves and to ask you to keep the transgender policy as it is today. In the Hebrew and Christian Bible, in Psalm 139, it says, this is the psalmist speaking to God, "For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, that I know very well." And later in the psalm, the speaker talks about God knowing everything that will ever happen to anyone before they were born. And that includes the moment of transition for trans people. So I am here tonight to say, God loves everybody. God loves Ms. Byrne.
Okay.
God loves
don't
the rest of the board.
Please don't
God
direct
loves
it.
the woman who gave the report, whose name is escaping me right now. Thank you. God loves those who.
I move to a question of privilege, please.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be attacking people.
Yeah, you
personally.
shouldn't.
I didn't attack anybody. I
Don't-
said
You
God
are
loves
mentioning somebody
Don't
personally,
direct
sir.
comments right to at a board member. You have to speak to me. Thank you.
Okay, God loves everyone on the board. And God loves everyone here. And I thank you for your decisions.
Joanne Wildman.
Can you hear me?
Ashley Hobbs, you're going to be next. Okay.
Hi, my name is Joanne Weepman. I'm a psychiatric social worker in a psychiatric hospital, and I work with children and adolescents and have been for the last 10 years. I also grew up in this area, and I can say from experience of working with thousands and thousands of teenagers that one of the most important things, we know this from research, and I can tell you from personal professional experience, the most important thing for preventing suicide and suicide risk for trans and LGBT youth is the support of people, of adults in their life, whether that's parents, whether that's schools. And frankly, it's gotten to the point where a lot of times students come to the hospital for attempting suicide or other serious mental health issues derived from a lack of support in their community. And then the psychiatric hospital, and they come into my office, is the first time they've ever actually felt understood and seen and valued, and also given exposure to the books that we're talking about. Genderqueer, This Book is Gay, other books like that. And it should not come to the point where kids have to be in a severe psychiatric crisis to come to a place where they feel like they're respected and understood. That should be happening at school at the bare minimum. And that is our job as a former educator. This is our job. And this is what schools are for. And I applaud the policy that you guys have on place, that you are respecting the rights of trans and of non-binary children to identify how they identify and not allow parents who may not be supportive to support that. And also, these books do save lives. And we all care about children. We care about the well-being of our children. You know, we don't argue about that. But again, this is about life-saving for our children. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley Hobbs. And Ruka Rubin is next.
Thank you, Dr. Rocco, and to those members of the board and community who recognize that policy 5756 cannot be up for debate. Seeing it on the agenda was shocking and terrifying. And I am so glad that the majority of the board is supporting our students. It is not about book bans. It is not about transgender policy. It is a policy about human rights, the human right to exist. And our students have the right to exist and to be seen. Our LGBTQ plus students fight every day for their right to exist. And then they have to listen to grown adults tell them they don't have the right to exist in a place that is supposed to keep them safe. It's horrifying. Do you know, according to the Trevor Project, 45% of trans students attempted suicide in the past year? 45%. Those students who had gender affirming schools drastically dropped those rates. And when their community was a supportive community, it was even more of a drastic decrease in the amount of kids who wanted to kill themselves because they felt they did not have the right to exist as they are. So when you tell me you care about students and you are here to protect students, but you deny them the right to exist or to be seen, you do not care about all students. You only care about those who fit your image. So thank you again, Dr. Rocco, and to those board members who come out here constantly supporting every single one of our Hamilton students and every single Hamiltonian family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rika Rubin. I live in Hamilton with my husband and my two kids. My oldest graduated from West in 2020, and my youngest is currently a junior there. I had everything written out, but based on what happened here, I have a couple of other things I want to say. First of all, Board Member Harvey, thank you and your committee so much for the work that you did. And also thank you, Dr. Rocco, for what you said at the beginning. As the mother of two queer kids, who has been coming out here, trying to represent them since August. It meant the world to me and to my kids. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. When I read Genderqueer, I couldn't give that book to my youngest fast enough. I had to do the thing where you don't act so excited because you don't want them to turn it down because, you know, it's like this book, I'm just gonna leave it here. So if you want to read it, it's here. And I do think that that book can save lives. So I also want to say what other people have said is addressing the transgender student policy that I was at the last meeting as well with my two kids, and we cheered when that was read. We cheered when it was read, and when everybody affirmed it, that also meant so much and was so reassuring to all of us. I think that also with regard to the policy, it's my understanding that it is based on New Jersey Department of Ed policy. So it's not even just us. I believe it's across the state of New Jersey. So if people have issues with it, then it's a larger issue than even just our town. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. Everything that was said about transgender students, LGBTQ being marginalized, and that being seen, being represented by the books that are on the shelves, even if they're not checked out, is incredibly important. Thank you all.
Thank you. Louise Walpin. Louise. Then Cecilia Figueroa, you'll be next.
Hi, I've been a psychiatric nurse practitioner for over 25 years. I'm also a mother and a grandmother, and my wife and I were the lead couple in the fight for marriage equality from 2009 to 2013. So I guess you could say I've lived the words of Martin Luther King Jr. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, safety, positive self-esteem, longevity, protection. I'm sure we can all agree that our children need these things. They're entitled to it. Sadly, it's not the case for many LGBTQI youth. Approximately 80% of transgender individuals have considered killing themselves, and 40% have actually attempted suicide. We know the risk increases due to lack of family support and school support, stigma, bullying, being forced to live in an assigned gender rather than the gender they identify with, and fear of being rejected by others. 320,000 to 400,000 gay and transgender youth face homelessness each year, with the average age for transgender youth being 13 and a half years of age. 62% of homeless gay and trans youth have experienced family rejection. Suicide risk and homelessness can be decreased by a sense of belonging in school, which can only be created by supportive school policies, confidentiality, peer and family support. Bullying and outing kids in potentially unsafe situations must be curtailed with appropriate policies. I echo that of many others. Thank you, those who have supported, who echo support for trans and gay youth. We have to do better in terms of safeguarding our youth. We have a legal and imperative, an ethical imperative to do so. Please help decrease suicide and homelessness by maintaining supportive policies for gay and trans youth. Thank you.
Cecilia Figueroa. And then Ewa Elliott, you're up next.
Good evening, everyone. Over a year ago, my child, she is autistic, but since she was 2 years old, her name is Destiny, but it's called Des. At first, I thought that no one would ever take her serious or take him serious. Okay, I fought with you guys, and I am taking responsibility of saying, Dr. Rocco, thank you for sending me an email stating to me, Des is gonna be safe. He could be himself. Nothing is gonna happen to Des. And you accepted my child as a he, because that's what he is. A lot of people here think that transgender comes, in a little book that you're gonna pick it up. Oh, my child's transgender. No, it doesn't happen that way. But when everyone adult is talking about somebody's gonna come after queer, LGBTQ people, these kids, these 9-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds don't know how to interpret that kind of communication. So as parents, as community, we need to do better. We don't need to say, listen, kid, you don't need to say you are queer, lesbian, or gay. Doesn't matter. I support you as a human being. It doesn't matter where we came from. But it does matter where we're heading to. You understand? And if everyone in Hamilton, I have 4 children, 3 of them graduated from Hamilton. 1 of them graduated from Steiner in 2005, and she works for lobbyists, okay? The other one graduated from West in 2008. She's a dentist, and one graduated just 2 years ago. So I know.
Thank you. Time is up. Thank you very much.
Done justice.
Ewa Elliott.
Thank you.
You're next. Fran Carroll, you're up after this.
Good evening. My name is Eva Dziedzic Elliott, and I represent the New Jersey Association of School Librarians. And I have this wonderful bird's eye view on the state of New Jersey and what's happening in school libraries across the state. I had a statement I was supposed to read today, but this board actually did my job for me. So thank you so much. I came here to request support for school librarians and a strong stand against book banning. Dr. Rocco and the board, you displayed a deep level of understanding the school library operations and the core of librarianship. Mr. Caring, I wish all districts would provide this level of training for their community members. Thank you. Ms. Harvey, thank you for your excellent statement. The librarians could not do a better job compiling a list of reasons why books like Genderqueer have a place in our libraries. I wish I could take what I have seen and heard here today to other school districts across the state and use it as a model in their struggles against censorship. For the record, we have members of New Jersey Association of School Librarians across the state listening to this meeting right now, hoping that your stand today will help us fight our fight against censorship. To the parents in the audience, go home, talk to your children, set the boundaries and the rules that are right for you and your family. Allow these highly effective, knowledgeable, and well-prepared educators to do their job the way they are mandated to do by our federal, state, and local laws for public schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Fran Carroll. And next will be Palio Bilardo. Go ahead.
Something that was said at the April meeting in relation to the need to reaffirm policy 5756 resonated with me. And I quote, "If students don't feel safe, they can't learn." I would like to thank Superintendent for his comments related to the upcoming June 2nd National Gun Violence Awareness Day, also known as Wear Orange Day. I'm a lead with Mercer Moms Demand Action, and this is important. On this, the 1-year anniversary of the Uvalde devastating school shooting. I'm glad so many of the speakers here know and are aware that most of the lives lost to gun violence in this country every year are not the result of mass shootings or, criminal acts, but as a result of suicide. Transgender and LGBTQ plus youth are particularly vulnerable population where the incidence of suicide is higher than average. And this is due in large part to rhetoric similar to what we've heard, unfortunately, in this room on these board meetings over the past year. The lack of acceptance, of acknowledgement, of inclusion, of seeing themselves represented in a book, that kids are being told that something is wrong with them just for being who they are. I recently read that having just one accepting adult in their life can decrease an LGBTQ young person's risk of suicide by 40%. Just imagine what it could do for those young people to have a whole village, a whole school district, a whole township, a whole state, a whole country of accepting adults in their lives. Again, June 2nd is National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I encourage everyone to visit wearorange.org to find out more information about this movement. Wear orange, take a picture, share it on social media, tell people why you're wearing orange.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's important.
Mr. Bilardo and Stephen Chacumba, you're up next.
Good evening to the board. I'm here tonight. I hear a lot about transgender, and I'm hearing a lot about the LGBTQ community and about being marginalized. Now I'm here to ask a question. I wanted to know what the results were at Hamilton West and what happened with this, the one student and my child.
I'm not following, sir.
Okay. Dr. Rocco was kind enough to respond to me and a few other people from the school. So being marginalized, my son is a special needs child. So being a special needs child, another student of the same age had been grooming him for over 6 months, and got my son, who really didn't know what he was doing, pull down his pants, show his genitalia. He videotaped him on Instagram, and then shared it with the student or two other students that were on the video with him, and then sent it out to other students at West, and it even made it here to Steiner. So I'm curious if that student is now going to be expelled from Hamilton West, and why is he still playing baseball?
We don't discuss students in public session. It's a matter of state and federal law that all matters regarding all students are confidential. So it's impossible, and it won't be discussed in public tonight.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention. I was just waiting for a result on what was happening, knowing that those students are still attending school with my child. So being here, listening to all these stories of all these great people and their situation that they're having with their with children with the LGBTQ community, and being a person that supports that community as well, because I'm probably one of the most open and person that I know, that I sat there, I have contractors putting in gender neutral porta johns on job sites now, just to support that group, because I don't want them to feel left out. But my son, and he's a special needs student, and it feels like he's being
Thank you.
marginalized.
Can Dr. Rocker, can you get in touch with him? Okay. Thank you.
Madam President, can we make sure that
And
it's,
yeah, I just told
that-
Dr. Rocker that. Rose, I'm gonna mess up the last name, but Kringle, you're up next.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stephen Chikumba. I'm a member of the Human Rights Campaign and the Garden State Equality. My son identifies as transgender, and 6 years ago when he came out, I had no idea what that meant. And in that period of time since he came out and now, I have seen this country treat children as some sort of thing, as things, not human beings, not children, but objects of ridicule and hatred and condemnation. And it's very concerning when I hear that a school district right next to my town is considering the removal of books which allow him to feel seen and validated and valuable as a human being. It's also concerning when I hear conversations about not keeping affirmative language that affirms students in school policy. And I'm very elated to know that what I was hearing was incorrect, that in fact, this board does value and understand the importance of books that allow children to see themselves, and a policy that allows children to feel safe at school, especially in a climate where so much is being done to marginalize this specific community. So I had a whole speech where I was going to say, how dare you? But I'm not going to do that, because I can see this body does understand the importance of validating and supporting and keeping these people safe at all times, so that they can learn, so that they can be contributing members of society. As this one mother talked about her children who came to this school and how well they're doing. That's what we want for all of our children. We want our children to come here, be safe, be seen, be validated, be happy, learn, and go home safe, seen, heard, welcome, and validated. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And after, we have somebody that just put initials here, TH. Okay, you're next. After, thank you.
Yes, Dr. Rocco, thank you for, showing your support for the LGBTQ community. Perhaps you could do the same for the newly elected school board member who has been repeatedly attacked, and I've seen it over and over again, because they want the same courtesy for their children and for their community. It would be nice if they could do the same for her. I have seen them address her by name. up here on the microphone, and you have not once addressed that. President Lombardo has, but you have not. So maybe you could do the same and address that to the community, because I've watched it repeatedly happen over and over again. My next question is for the attorney. You said, according to policy 9130 in your presentation, the only people who can file complaints are parents and students, parents of school students. Is this true?
That's not what I said during
All right,
my
well, I would like
presentation.
you to clarify what it is you said. You can't just be a taxpayer under policy 9130. You can't file a complaint, a book complaint, unless you have a child or student, unless you are a student or you have a child in the school district. Is that what you said? You said
Ma'am,
taxpayers can't.
So it's unusual for me to answer questions during this.
Yeah, a lot of stuff you do is unusual, but I would appreciate an answer.
We only have 22 seconds left, so.
I filed a book complaint on March 6th, and I'm hearing this now today on May 24th. You know, Dr. Rocco never got back to me saying that I'm not allowed to file a complaint. And you just said in your presentation, taxpayers can't file book complaints. Is that true? So am I going to hear from you? Is that, I'm taking that as a no?
No, he did
Nobody's
not-
responded
he did
to
not
me.
say that, so we have to move on.
Yeah, that wasn't said in my presentation, and on the slide, it clearly doesn't say that. So like, I don't know what else to say other than it doesn't say that, and I didn't say that.
Okay,
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
you can give us your name if you'd like. If not, we'll just let you go.
My name's Ian Hartman. I live in Bordentown.
Okay, go ahead. You're up.
If we're going to talk about civility, how about they not accuse everyone on one side of the political divide of being pedophiles? That's, yeah, if you want to talk civility, I'm not going to say what I want to say right now. I have a speech written, and I'm going to say what I was going to say before they started saying that. I got some questions. If I got time, I got questions for those two, though. Schools should promote democratic values and help children become the best version of themselves. This is about turning teachers into snitches so that they can alert parents who want to groom their children to fit into a strict conformist way of life. This is not just happening here. This is part of a statewide and nationwide agenda to turn schools into right-wing indoctrination centers. We are the majority of Americans who believe in liberty and justice for everyone. But I want to know, you guys, these are your, are those your supporters? Did that lawyer speak for you guys? I want to know that. I want to know that.
Can't, you have to direct it to me.
Can you? I'll give you my email. You can let me know later. If you're going to make accusations like that, why don't you make those accusations in a court of law? That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Okay, that closes that portion of the meeting. We're going to move things around a little bit because we do have some staff members that have been sitting here for a very long time. So we're going to move personnel first. So Ms. Thornton.
Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, I move personnel items 1 through 15.
I second that motion, and I would like to amend to replace the motion 14 and submit, or motion 14-2 to submit the hand carry agreement for 14-2.
I lost mine on here too.
I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Second.
Yeah.
Yes, personnel.
We're doing personnel first.
Yes, we're taking it out of order. So
That's
this
fine,
is the
but-
personnel motion that Ms. Thornton has moved, and I have seconded it, and I have made a motion to amend for 14-2 to be substituted for the hand carry agreement.
Is the second. Is it all in favor or is it there's a roll?
You can do all
All
in
in
favor.
favor?
Aye.
Wait, what are we voting on?
We're voting on
Voting on the
personnel.
amendment
Amend
to
the
number 14.
motion.
Just the amendment?
Just the
Okay.
amendment.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes.
So the motion is now amended. The original motion remains items 1 through 15.
This is going to be roll call, is it not?
Yes.
Thank you.
Call the question?
Doesn't say that, but
Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to discuss? Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to go over some retirements that we have this evening. Hold on, sorry. Okay, so we have an English language arts teacher from Reynolds Middle School, Cynthia Corella, 16 years. Social worker from Hamilton High School North, Tara Walters, 25 years. Secretary from Grice Middle School, Marianne Rivera, 20 years. A custodian from Sunnybray Elementary School, Cynthia Walsh, 10 years. And a math teacher from Reynolds Middle School, John Femiano, 20 years. We want to thank you all so much for all you've done for Hamilton, and we wish you the best in your retirement.
Thank you. Ms. Atwood?
Ms. Harvey?
I need to abstain from 2C, line 15, and 2H, 205, and 393. Yes to the rest.
Mr. Kanka?
Yes.
Dr. McShane?
Yes, but abstain on 2G64.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes, but abstain on 2C7. Yes to all others.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Salantano?
yes.
Dr. Farrar?
I am abstaining on 14, number 2. And yes on everything else.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, I have to abstain on 2H 282. But yes, on everything else.
Ms. Lombardo?
Yes.
Motion's all pass.
So in that personnel motion, we have 2 transfers. First of all, I want to congratulate Mr. Kesting, who is going to move over to be the Sunnybray principal effective July 1st. So congratulations to Mr. Kesting. He's done a wonderful job at Cooser Elementary School, and I know he will do the same moving forward. Also, we have a new athletic director at Nottingham High School, Jess Mole. If you don't mind, would you like to come up for a second to the mic?
I'd like to just say one thing about the new AD at Nottingham. A few years back, my daughter was on the field hockey team, and she was just an assistant coach. I didn't really know her then. And my daughter had gotten a red card, and she was really down on herself. She wanted to just quit. Those girls didn't know anything about field hockey. She didn't know what she was even doing to get a red card. And she really was down and really wanted to quit after much money on field hockey camp before she even got there. And Coach Mole showed up at our door and wanted to talk to her. And I just thought going out of your way like that for students, for athletes, was amazing. Not to mention what she's done with our special ed community. I know Marta will miss her, but she's done so much for so many students on both sides, and it's a big loss for Marta, but it's a huge gain for Nottingham High School. And I wish you all the best. I think you're going to be wonderful. You definitely are. I can't wait to see where the athletics go from here.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks. So I would like to thank Dr. Rocco. Thank you so much. Board members, Frank Ragazzo, and the administrative team at Nottingham for this opportunity. When I was a freshman at Nottingham, one of my softball coaches told us that we would forever bleed blue and gold. My heart has been part of Nottingham since 1999, where I've met some incredible people who have helped in my education journey. I'm excited, honored, grateful, and incredibly humbled to continue to bleed blue and gold. as the athletic director at Nottingham High School. So thank you.
Congratulations.
And just for one more thing, her mom flew in all the way from Florida for this, and she had put a picture up of a bagel from New Jersey. I said, I wonder why you're here in New Jersey. Is there anything special going on? So it's a special night for everyone. Mr. Ragazzo, you picked a good one. Okay, next we're gonna have, I guess we'll go backwards now. Let me see where we would have been.
Curriculum.
Curriculum and instruction, Dr. Farrar.
Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, I move items 1 through 10.
Second. I can hear a
Anybody
pin
have any
drop.
questions or concerns on those?
I'll go
Dr.
through
McShane, your
the,
DCR?
yeah, I'll just go through the gift and grant donations. We had a few this month. So I'll just run down the list real quick. From the one project, there's to the value of $880, items for kids' snack bags. A big one from the Hamilton Education Foundation, to East, North, and West, $3,850 or $3,850, to offset the cost of prom tickets for our high schools and our students. There was on the list a Donors Choose project that has been funded, which is phonemic awareness instruction and sight word materials, to the value of about $410. And there's one, and I don't know if anyone has more background that they would like to share for this, but they're from a company called ECBM LP, in the memory of a former teacher, Millicent Feinberg, in the value of $1,000, to Mercerville Elementary School, and it is for a food bank for students. And I know I saw an email regarding that. And just quickly, Millicent Feinberg was a teacher in the district till her retirement in 1997. She taught at Clockner, Langtree, and Mercerville. And so I think thank you for donating that much to, in her memory. And then we have a bunch of items for Tech Night that all went through the technology department. Anonymous donated $200 worth of tech items. There was from the Hamilton YMCA, $250 in the form of gift certificates for Tech Night. The Drone Legends have donated a drone kit for Tech Night that I think we might have seen in action or was one of the prizes. Grounds for Sculpture donated a admission coupon for Tech Night. There was a by Sylvan Learning, there was a gift basket for Tech Night to the value of $450 from the Babina Bakes, a paint your own cookies coupon for Tech Night for the value of $30, and from Code Ninjas, a gift certificate for Tech Night at $50.
Thank you. Do you have anything for DCR?
Oh, no.
Okay, I should have asked you that
Yeah,
before.
sorry, we're on break before right now.
Ms. Atwood?
Ms. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Kanka,
Yes.
Dr. McSheen,
Yes.
Ms. Thornton,
Yes.
Ms. Byrne,
Yes.
Mr. Salantano,
Yes.
Dr. Farrar,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Lombardo.
Yes.
Motion's pass.
Mr. Kanka, Finance and Operations?
As per recommendations of the superintendent, I move motions 1 through 17.
It's a second.
Anybody have any questions or? Sorry.
The question I have is how do we stop spending too much money when it doesn't do anything?
Oh,
That's a joke.
That's not a good point.
It's kind
Okay.
of a joke.
Ms. Atwood?
Lighten up a little bit.
Ms. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Kanka,
Yes.
Dr. McSheen,
Yes.
Thornton,
I need to abstain on motion 10, page 33, line items 1 through 3, yes on all others.
Ms. Byrne,
I'm going to abstain from motion 10, page 17, number 2217, yes to the rest.
Mr. Salantano,
Yes.
Dr. Farrar,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Ms. Lombardo.
Yes.
Motion's pass.
Okay. We did HR. Other business?
Madam President, I'd like to table the motion, for the discussion of the policy until we get some clearer heads.
There is no.
Until we get what? Mr.
You have
Sullivan?
you have a discussion on policy 5756. I'd like to table the motion tonight. I'm sorry, table the discussion.
You're making a motion to table the discussion?
Table the discussion, yeah, that's,
Do I have a second?
Why is that? I didn't hear why the explanation.
just wanted to
He wants to
table
table
the
it. I
discussion.
don't think he needs an explanation.
I will second that, given the late hour.
And we still have hours to go after this meeting.
That did come into my thinking, but I'll deny I said that.
There's a second.
Do we have a second? Christina?
Yes.
you seconded it?
Seconded.
Ms. Atwood, can you just, I guess it's all,
Table.
does it have to be a roll call?
No, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Abstaining from this.
Abstain?
I'm
Liam,
little
Mr. Gonzalez?
Is he abstaining? No.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else in other business, Mr. Kanka?
I would like to make a recommendation that in June, July, and August, the board change the attire to casual.
Second, let's go.
I'm on board. In fact, I would have done it tonight if you told me.
It's very hot up here.
I
Could
disagree.
you make it during this meeting?
Richard, does that include the attorney?
That includes the board attorney.
I think you better do a roll call because you might not have the majority for this. No. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
You want it all in
Yeah,
favor?
no.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Abstain?
That just means you guys have to remember, Mr.
Goes in the minutes now.
It's official.
Can we
As
wear
senior
shorts?
staff too, you can come in your shorts.
Can we wear shorts? I'm talking about designer shorts, not.
Okay, we're gonna be wishing for that because in the summer, this is gonna be hot.
That's inclusive. Anybody who wears a
Are we
tie.
good for all that so we can move on?
I have one thing, Mrs. Lombardo.
Oh, please don't.
Are you ready?
No. Oh, no.
It'll be quick. I just want to give a little historical background on the motion or on the discussion we're now not going to have about the policy.
Wait, we're not having it,
We're-
Dr. Farrar.
But
please
you know what?
hold
This is,
until the next meeting. We did that on purpose for a reason. So we can
Okay.
move on. We have 40 minutes of public.
we have 40
speaking.
minutes. All right. I'll wait. I'll send it all to you in an email.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mark Roselli. Going once, going twice. Next, John Miska. Muka. That looked like an S this time, but I'll remember for next month.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Muga, lifelong resident of Hamilton Township. I'll try to be as brief as possible. Had a lot of words tonight, a lot of shock in all words. We all knew that how this was going to turn out with the books. Wasn't necessary to pound this into submission here. I think Mrs. Lombardo made a good point. And I think my learning after all these meetings, this is my 12th in a row, is that we're all being manipulated by a lot of outside forces here. And I don't think Hamilton Township residents and taxpayers and students and teachers, if we got together just in Hamilton, I don't think we'd have half of these problems. Because we all admit that transgender people exist. There should be no bullying of anybody. And we all want the same success for the students. But we got a lot of outside influences on both sides that get into this, let's you and him fight. And then they step back and they start imposing even more things on us. Now, I don't know whether you're familiar, we heard so much about the First Amendment tonight. Well, what's the background of the First Amendment? Does anybody know where that actually came from? James Madison and Jefferson were opposed to Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton, because he wanted to impose a very centralized, top-down approach to government.
Just use my phone.
And Madison and Thomas Jefferson would not have that. So the two of them wrote all of those amendments, especially the First Amendment, to stop the top-down infliction of power on everybody else. And yet we live in New Jersey where we're living under top-down mandates, enforcement of those mandates. You know, you had a Hanover Township School Board just make a slight change to their policy about transgenderism to say that parents should be told about that. Unless, of course, it endangers the welfare of the child, at which point Child Protective Services should be informed and the parents should be dealt with. It's 4 minutes.
It's
Thank you.
4.
So I'll just close it there. What we're doing here is not working. You have it in your power to call a conference meeting at length where we can sit down and talk to each other and reason a little bit. We can never do it in this meeting. We're reduced to 4 minutes. Everybody else on the sits up there gets 20 minutes at a time to talk. And then when people are down to 2 minutes, how can anybody be eloquent in 2 minutes? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next 6 people that signed up are about the policy. So we can either go to 2 minutes for each of them, or we're gonna have to extend again. So I'm gonna read the names, though. You can come up and speak or not speak. So Joanne Bruno. Okay. Michael Myers.
He spoke.
Writing another movie.
He left. I think he left.
He definitely.
Well, there you go, solving this. Sharon Valero. What was that?
Good.
Thank you. Oh, Stephen, sorry. Jennifer Williams. Just caught up.
Amy Lee Curtis.
Good evening. Thank you very much. And thank you for serving your community here in Hamilton. I have a lot of family from here. Just going to say some controversial things, nothing too bad. I'm a parent. I'm a homeowner. I'm a sports coach. I have 2 children, and one in 8th grade, one graduating high school. I'm a Roman Catholic. My son had his confirmation a few weeks ago. My family, most of my older siblings served this country for many years in the military. Something I wanted to do, but unfortunately I grew up in an era where we weren't allowed to do that because there was a ban on LGBTQ people because I happen to be transgender. I also presently, and now I'm speaking as a citizen of Mercer County, someone who has friends here, Mercer, has a lot of family in Mercer, family in Hamilton, friends that graduated from all 3 of the high schools, relatives that graduated from 2 of the high schools, including my wife, graduated from West. And what I want to say to you is a few things. One, transgender people, as was admitted earlier, we actually do exist. We're no threat. We're no threat in restrooms. We're no threat in locker rooms. We're no threat in society. We're not a threat where we're sitting next to you on a plane, on a train, in a restaurant, etc. But what is important is your policy is, as we said earlier, a model policy. It's one that protects kids. It's one that protects the kids that the kids go to school with. And it's one that allows these children to go to a school safely and have access to the American dream, which is something we all want for ourselves. We all want for our children. Now, I'm going to tell you, around the country, a lot of states are banning transgender children from getting medical care, that's proper, necessary medical care, from them playing sports, from a lot of things. A lot of these families are going to start coming to New Jersey. They're going to come to Hamilton. And there are many families that are here in Hamilton that have transgender kids. I meet them. I've had some reach out to me. And when it comes to the books in your library, yeah, they may not be getting checked out. One thing hasn't changed. I'm a Gen Xer. One thing has not changed since I was in school is you may not take the book home, but if you see it on a shelf, it gives you a chance to read and learn about yourself, to see others about yourself. I grew up in an era when the only image of a transgender person was what you saw on Jerry Springer or Maury Povich. Ridiculous. The idea that a transgender person could be a lawyer, an executive at a pharmaceutical firm, which I know, I have a friend that does that. Per people serving in our military. We have the director commissioner of personnel for the state of New Jersey is a transgender woman. And I am not an outside influencer, but I happen to serve on the city council of Trenton, New Jersey. One day you're going to have, hopefully, a transgender kid, a non-binary kid. I don't know if any of you happen to be gay or lesbian or bi or anywhere else on the gender spectrum. Someone is going to serve on a school board one day who is LGBTQ+, and that'll be a good thing. But what I want to say to you is you are doing the right things. Keep doing them because you're not going to know you're saving lives, but you are. And you're making Hamilton a better place. Trust me, I grew up in Mercer County. The idea that I would see pride flags in Hamilton, it still gets me when I have friends in Yardville who put up a pride flag when it's June. The fact that my two friends and their family, their little family, their daughter are safe and they feel comfortable to put up a pride flag in Hamilton, you have a great community. Keep it. Do the right things. Don't ban books. Don't decommission books like Navy ships, and keep your policy.
Thank
God
you.
bless. Thank you.
Andreas Majai? Andreas? Andreas? Okay. Fran Carroll?
Hi. Again, wanted to talk about the National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I do have to say, I thank the superintendent for his comments and the mention about that and for his support. I am a little bit disappointed that the Board of Ed this year decided not to, decided against issuing a proclamation declaring the first Friday in June as National Gun Violence Awareness Day, also known as Wear Orange Day. I had submitted this request to every board member and to the superintendent. You all should have gotten emails. Let me know if you didn't receive it. On behalf of Mercer Moms Demand Action, I had submitted that request. The Hamilton Township Mayor and Township Council last week issued a proclamation for the township, so it will be officially recognized here in Hamilton, and the municipal building will be lit in orange for the weekend. It's a whole weekend of events, actually, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. In 2019, the Hamilton Board of Ed did support this measure, and I'd hoped that it would be on the agenda again tonight, actually, for this, and exactly today is the 1-year anniversary of Uvalde, in which 19 elementary students and 2 teachers were killed in their school. And I just feel it's just more important than ever at this time when mass shootings and all categories of gun violence are on the rise in this country. And to be clear, all that measure for the, asking for the proclamation would have done is encourage folks throughout our district to join others throughout America in wearing orange on June 2nd to raise awareness about gun violence and just as importantly, to honor the lives of victims, victims and survivors of gun violence. I'm not sure exactly what the concern of some board members were with regard to this proclamation. I heard that there might have been some issue with some of the wording, and I'd just like to encourage you to reach out to me to discuss any particular questions or any particular concerns that anybody has regarding this or the proclamation of the question. I hope that we could talk about it. You should have my email and which my phone number, which I'm happy to give. I'd like to talk about it. And I encourage everyone to, again, June 2nd, wear orange, take a picture. This is to everybody out there listening and to the board, to wear orange, tell people why you're wearing orange, take the picture. It's important. It's an epidemic we have of gun violence in this country. And this is a solvable problem. We can take measures to effectively reduce this. And like I said, please reach out, any board members, about any concerns you have. I would love to talk to you, or even through email, whatever you're comfortable with.
And just to point out, Dr. McSheehan has his orange on.
Yes.
And so does Ms. Harvey.
Yes.
And
Not June 2nd.
Yep.
Mr. Dr. Rocco.
Dr.
And
Thank you
also,
very
that
much.
was part of our $900,000, which I stated in the beginning of the meeting, which is something that we can discuss, and that I hope the coming months, we can transition into those kind of things, and Dr. Altabello and Dr. Rocco can actually tell you what they're going to implement, which I think will directly go with the gun violence and crack down on a lot of that in Hamilton. But thank you.
Terrific. Maybe we can
So
revisit
Joe
next year. We could take a picture. If we
Marchica.
do a proclamation, we can take a fun picture.
Joe Marchica.
So I want to thank the majority of this board who understands how important it is to stand against censorship and how important it is to prioritize the freedom for every child to be able to see themselves reflected in the curriculum that they see in school. And I want to thank you for a thorough report and for highlighting the hypocrisy of banning books ostensibly to stop teachers or books from grooming these kids. You've seen that this is an attempt to control what kids can and can't read, to control what information they intake, and to essentially, in a way, groom them. This is coming from an ideology that is at its heart fascist, that is at its heart an attempt to impose a particular vision, a particular hyper-conservative vision on a school district that is meant to serve a broad array of backgrounds of people. And I want to thank you for standing up for that, first and foremost. And this is really, really crucial because that ideology does not see LGBTQ youth, transgender youth specifically as people, but instead as objects to mold into what they see as what people are supposed to be. And by standing on the right side of this issue, you affirm that those kids can feel safe and welcome in schools, and given the high suicide rates amongst transgender and LGBTQ youth, that's incredibly, incredibly important. So thank you. Before I wrap, I do want to address some comments I've heard here, kind of both siding this issue. This is a basic human rights issue. There's one group here seeking to support you and affirm your stance in favor of LGBTQ rights and in favor of diversity and in favor of open information. We're here to support you. We're here so you don't just hear a constant stream of vitriol. So please do not equate supporting human rights and supporting you with the folks who are here to attack you and try to turn this institution into one that undermines our kids' education and undermines your job and seeks to replace you. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Lankowski, you remembered where your place was. Didn't even have to remind you.
Hello, Lisa Lankowski, member of HTCSE. I know it's late. To compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gaze, not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We may lay down our arms so that we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to known and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say that this is true. This week, the poem by Amanda Gorman, read at the presidential inauguration, entitled "The Hill That We Climb," has been banned from the curriculum through 5th grade in Miami-Dade County in Florida. It was deemed not suitable for elementary students up through 5th grade because it's deemed CRT. This was read aloud. We almost all of us got to watch that amazing young woman read this amazing poem that's now been banned. That's why we're all coming here. That's why we're all showing this support, because this is just the start. If you think that this is just the beginning. We adopted the hashtag #OneHamilton, and yet these Board of Ed meetings have been divisive and divided for close to 10 months, maybe even longer than that. We must set a better example. Our kids are watching. Right now, 100+ kids are driving back from Florida. They're driving back from Newark Airport after attending the marching band parade in Florida. They represent all 3 high schools from the marching band and color guard. I grew up in this town, and this would never have happened several decades ago, yet here we are. That's progress. We must show in all that we do and say that we support and care for every Hamilton Township student. We have so many great things happening in our district and important things to achieve, and we must continue to move forward and progress. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think she's still here, but Miss Chanel Vickers Aim. I don't see her. Oh, there you are back there. I looked around. I didn't see you.
Hi. It's been a long night, but so I noticed, or I heard earlier it was mentioned during the committee reviews that Wilson was selected for a mental health program. Wonderful. But that was something that the DCR committee was working on, and it got shut down for whatever reason. Our mission was to come up with some mental health sources for the district. I don't know why our mission was changed, but it was. But for anybody out there, the DCR committee is the District Community Relations Committee, and we are recruiting for anybody in the community that wants to join us. Please help us. But I'm just wondering how come now we have funds to help Wilson when they could have been the pilot school for the work that the DCR committee actually did when the mission got changed because of whatever legal reasons that we weren't allowed to keep going on with the mission that we were trying to run. I don't know if it was the way we were wording it that we couldn't keep the platform we had, but whatever. And also I wanted to know an update on the crosswalk safety. The school year is almost over. Wilson still doesn't have anything happening with our crosswalk. And tomorrow we have a makeup day because unfortunate death of a neighbor because of the crosswalk. So I was just wondering if we got any update on the crosswalk safety program that we were gonna work on because of that. That's it.
I think if you talk to Dr. Artavella when you're done, and he should be able to help you.
Okay,
Are you
thank
done?
you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. I hope, we can move forward in the future and work
Lombardo?
together to move on with, other, also in addition to this subject, other important things in the district. With the end of the year coming, graduation and other things, and have a exciting summer and a good year next year. Mrs. Glonick, I'm pretty upset that you weren't on that this evening.
Mrs.
Did
Lombardo?
somebody say Mrs. Lombardo? Yes. Oh, yeah.
In light of the public discussion, I would like to make a motion that on June 2nd, 2023, that the district encourages the students to wear orange in awareness of Gun Violence Awareness Day.
I
I'll
think
second
that's
that.
Dr. Rocco's decision, isn't it? Should we have done that in other business, though? Are we supposed to do it now? I don't think we were supposed to just close the meeting, but
Well, we have a motion and a second on.
who seconded it?
For Kanka?
Kanka.
I seconded under the radar.
Questions on motion?
All in favor?
What was theirs?
What does that mean exactly? My question is I'm sorry, I didn't understand what your proposal was.
My proposal is simply to encourage students, staff in the district to wear orange on June 2nd, 2023 in awareness of Gun Violence Awareness Day.
Okay.
That's,
Does that include this proclamation that she was
no,
talking about? Oh,
it's
just,
simply that.
They're wearing orange.
So it was motioned and seconded. Now, what kind of a?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes.
Going to make a suggestion.
I'm gonna,
I'm going, no,
what this,
apparently they opened up Pandora's box here.
I
So I'm-
didn't though.
No, not you. I'm going to make a suggestion. I kind of like the idea that a board member can speak after the meeting is allegedly ready to be
Well,
closed. I
the
think that
next
we
president
need to
could change
change
the
on
agenda
our, we need to change on our agenda the order in which the board can make comments, because what we're doing now is we're making comments.
Okay,
So I think you need to consider that. I'm not going to make that a motion. I'll do it in a regular
we're
meeting.
not making any more motions this evening.
Should not be allowed. You're correct.
And then we can think about it for next month, or
I already thought about it.
anybody else can do it after next month. I do have to ask, the board to vote to shut down the video camera. Cause we can't adjourn the meeting because we have to go into executive session and we'll probably be in there another hour and a half to 2 hours. But only the board members will be in there going over the superintendent, review. So we can close the meeting and send Katie our time and everything, but Mike, you won't have to stay if we
Three of us could go.
we all okay with that? All right, and is everybody listening to me?
We're listening. I just know that there's three of
Are
us
we
that won't
okay
be
to
there.
close the camera down now so Mike can go home?
Yes.
Good night, everyone.
Can I make a motion?
There's a motion.
Buenas noches.
A motion.
So we got motion to go into exec.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Motion
Want me to-
passes.
You want me to read it? Go ahead.